And so we ask.
This is a Jocko Willink podcast.
Your host, Jocko Willink. So I didn't know that that like who's gonna carry the boats thing is a David Goggins meme.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I didn't. The only thing
dumb.
I thought that I thought that the origin of it was that video of that super drunk Marine who's like running with the pack. And he's like, who's gonna carry the boats? I sleep before I wake up, just like vomiting everywhere.
Oh yeah, he's drinking.
I thought
beers.
that was the origin of it.
No.
Yeah, well, I was disappointed to find out because.
Well, you never know because they know the SEALs never wrote a book about it. So
that's true. No, I don't like. I only see David Goggins stuff from clips, and obviously, like, there's all the clips that are just people cut because they're funny, but there's the one where he's just like, I just want to be surrounded by the hardest men you can find, and I just want to be hard and surrounded by hard men.
Same.
Stay fucking hard.
I've never like sat down and listened to Jocko Willink. There is what was it? I can't. Oh, it was for my unit. Like our company commander had like a list of some books that he wanted like junior Marines to read, and then like NCOs and staff NCOs and officers and stuff. So there was this thing where it's like this library where you get a link and then you can go to the books that are part of your organization. I can't remember what website it was, but anyway, so I go on and one of the books was a Jocko Willink book. And so
it's probably like a leadership book or something.
Probably. Yeah. So I was like, all right, I'll crack this open. And in the first chapter,
start a podcast.
Step one, start a podcast. I was like, all right, check. And then the whole rest of the book was him just asking me what color my Bugatti is. No, it was just like stories on how, and I figured out that this is a common theme with a lot of his stories, and how they would go prep to go out like through Iraq, and they'd walk around, take contact, hide into a building, and then wait for like the Army or the Marine Corps to come in an armored vehicle and then just blow up the insurgents. And they'd be like, yeah, that's leadership.
Classic.
What is this? But yeah, I don't know. Maybe Zach can introduce himself and give us a reason why Rangers are better.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. My name's Zach. Go by the Allred on Instagram. Then I have a YouTube channel as well, The Danger Ranger, where I run my own podcast as well. I did 6 years with 75th Ranger Regiment, 1st Battalion. Did 6 deployments. Graduate of the U.S. Army Ranger School. Goofy guy, just a guy out here living. Out of the Army now. I run a tactical brand called Rockwell Designs, and I like to shoot. I like to shoot guns.
I don't know,
Yeah, I didn't even know that you did. So I originally found you because of a YouTube video that was like a range thing. Like you were going through like a range shoot thing, and then I think I wanted to see if you had an Instagram. So then I looked and found it or whatever. And then I didn't know until we started talking like last week that you also own Rockwell Designs.
Yeah, that is me. I was faceless on there, kind of censored for a while I was still serving, because I started it while I was in, and then I got out. I'm like, all right, I feel comfortable showing my face, but
I'm just ugly, so that's why I do it.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about the OPSEC. I just don't want to see people to see my face.
Exactly.
I just know I'm ugly, so I can't show my face.
I put my social security number on all packages that I ship out. Like OPSEC doesn't exist. I'm just really ugly. I like that Quasimodo. But no, So, because I think that I've only seen like one of your, like I know that you have a chest rig. And I know that a buddy of mine bought it because it could hold like G3 mags, and he used it a couple times. But I don't know, like what else you get. I'm gonna look you up right now.
Yeah, go for it. I mean, I kind of took a hiatus last year in 2022, or I guess it was 2023. I basically moved from Georgia to Utah, and I was like, I'm sick of sitting at the sewing machine. I took a break, and then I decided, all right, I'm coming back. So right now I'm just doing AK Kalashnikov rigs, and then I'm currently prototyping a 308, a new 308 pattern rig. And I've done like pistol caliber carbine, like SMG style rigs, and just a couple little side projects, pouches and stuff. I cloned a Delta breaching pouch that my buddy got from an operator. Yeah, I know, right?
Why not Dev Drew? No, there's probably like an airsoft right now having an aneurysm over that.
Oh yeah, for sure. The original
It's
one's
me.
sick.
It's me.
you. Cool. I'll get you the hookup.
So do you just focus on like AK 308 stuff because that's like there's not enough of it?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, the 5.56 stuff is already kind of inflated.
Exactly. When I was, the whole story, we can get into the story if you guys want, but I was like kind of looking at the market. I'm like, 1 billion people make fucking AR-15 stuff, right? So I was just getting into AKs at the time, and I'm like, hey, I need gear. And I was on deployment, and I came across a folder of like our riggers, and it was like, here's how to make easy body armor. And I'm like, damn, this stuff looks really easy. So while I was on deployment, I ordered a sewing machine and a bunch of material and just sketched up designs. And I got back, and it was during 2020. So we had a 2-week quarantine after, and I just sat down and taught myself how to sew and prototyped the first one and kind of took off from there.
Nice. Were you lucky enough to go to the airport, the Hamid Karzai?
HK? No. That was like right as I was getting out. I had a couple buddies that were actually there. One of them was he's a PJ. He was on the gate that got blown up like the shift right before it.
Yeah.
He lucked out, but I mean, I think he had to respond to that. And then I had another buddy from the 82nd who was there, and his job was to chop up all the weapons, and there was just too many of them, obviously. But he was just saying, dude, I was chopping up RPDs, PKMs, just cool guns, dude.
Yeah.
He said it was literally physically painful to do it because he's a gun guy as well. And
I'm sure if it was up to him, like all of those PKMs would have been
just putting the Connex, putting the back.
No, that whole thing was like a complete shit show from what I hear. Especially like the videos of the Marines having to like police call the whole thing before everyone left. Like there's guys that were Taliban like holding guard while Marines are just police calling the whole thing, like cleaning up this airfield.
Yeah, they got in trouble for leaving graffiti and shit. It's like, come on.
Which is nuts. It's like,
that blows my mind.
I know. No, it's wild. But no, the kind of the topic that we were talking about before is like, because there's a weird like infatuation that you'll see in a lot of these circles with guys like looking at like special operations and guys and like their kits and all that stuff, and it gets down to the point where like I was reading something and somebody was arguing over this guy that was in like a sniper course or something, or some sort of special operations shoot, whether he was SF or CAG, because his plate carrier was like the special JPC, like medium long size, and like it's only been issued to these guys from this period. Like they got super into it, but it was kind of entertaining. But no, I mean, regardless, like it's funny because I see a lot of mixed stuff where guys will be like, oh, people that are that were in the military, like they don't know how to do things properly, and it's dumb to want to emulate like infantry or special operations or whatever, which I agree and disagree in certain points. And then like they'll also like pride themselves on having never been in the military, which is fine, but then they'll like only want to take courses by guys that have these long military records, and it's just kind of a funny thing.
The mental gymnastics on that is hilarious to me.
Yeah, and
there's a lot of that in this.
Yeah, that's the whole thing.
It's all around on Instagram and mental gymnastics.
Well, and like Gio and I have talked about this before too. I forget what I was going to say. Yep, that's it.
Wow, great!
I have no idea what I was about to say.
What a moron!
Completely dropped off.
Can you believe this guy?
No, hold on.
What? So, not to get into the.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say.
Oh, perfect.
It was just that, like with the military, like the benefit of that, and like I don't think that there's a better or worse. I just think that it's different. I think that some people are going to join and that's what they're going to do. Like all three of us, obviously, we're in the military. And I think that guys that don't want to join or don't care to join, and they're like, I can just do this stuff on my own and train, and I don't want to join for whatever personal reason, is completely fine. Like obviously not everybody should join, and if you don't want to, like you shouldn't have to. But I think that the things that we were talking about that are beneficial to military is like your brand new boot that joins a unit, like fresh out of your like Army MOS school AIT or your Marine Corps MOS school, is generally much more advanced than somebody in the civilian realm who's been doing it and has been like self-learning and self-funding and everything for like a year or two. Just because like the amount of people that can realistically take 6 months to a year and focus on all that stuff and have the like discipline that they learn and some of these other like kind of soft skills applied on top of that, like it takes a long time and a lot of dedication for guys to get to that point on their own without especially with having a job, or if you have a family, or normal life stuff, you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you think about, just how difficult it is to like learn something on your own, like how regimented you have to force yourself to be. And the Army or the Marine Corps will provide that when you join, right? So it's going to just be so much quicker to pick up the little small shit that you might miss trying to figure this shit out on your own. And you're learning from people who've been doing it for so long.
Just think about how long it took you to become an NCO.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and the path.
4 years.
And this is knowing that you're doing this every day. Like, this is your job.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of, I don't want to say it's lost on a lot of guys, but I had like a story poll or whatever. And I asked like, which one of these is like the most difficult to make in terms of like time? I phrased it differently, but I put like sniper on there. I put machine gunner on there, paratrooper. I was just kind of guessing different billets just to kind of throw people off. But the one that I kind of figured people were going to answer the most was officer. And you break it down, an officer is not a second lieutenant, despite him having the reputation of not knowing a single thing.
Being a straight fucking dumbass.
Of course. No, you're preaching to the choir. But no matter what, from the point a second lieutenant graduates high school to his first day as a PL, like it's 6 years almost of fucking like experience. And you compare it to a cherry private that just got out of high school a month prior. And it's like, dude, like fuck, man, that's 6 years to make a basic officer. Like, it's not, I think it's lost on some guys. Like, how long does it take to make dudes who can lead? And then what did it take for them to learn how to lead in that environment? Because, leadership is the same in a lot of places, but it's also, there's clearly a lot of nuances, especially in the military, especially in combat arms.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as you know, as Tyler knows, it's all, there's so much like shit that goes into it, and there's so much like different ways
I'm
to
a
handle
pogue. I don't
things.
know what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, that's true. You are a water purification specialist. What is it? Yeah,
First to fight.
Water dog.
We're loyal.
Hey, every Marine's rifleman. Hoorah.
Lowercase r. I've seen some pretty shitty Marines on the range. Yeah.
But yeah.
It's definitely there. I mean, you think too. I think that you did another poll where you're asking people like what the largest unit size they think that they could manage is, and like a lot of people were basically saying like, oh, I could just jump in and be like a company commander, not realizing everything that goes into
Fuck that. No, sir.
Dude. Yeah. I get like, so before I moved over to being in the tactical air control party, like the FIST and all that stuff with kind of a small team, I was just in like the comm section, just as a radio guy. I was the radio chief. So I did like all the planning and stuff for the radio infrastructure and all that crap for the battalion. And so I was more on the technical side of things, not really like the admin side of things. But then because I was like one of the most senior sergeants that were in the platoon. Whenever our normal platoon sergeant would either go somewhere to do something, or if he wasn't able to make it for whatever reason, or he was sick or had something else going on, I would just take over as platoon sergeant, and it was terrible. I hated it. And when I knew, because I'm a reservist, when I knew like that weekend, like, hey, I'm gonna have to go there, I'm gonna have to be a platoon sergeant for 35 of these idiots, I was
Anxiety.
always not. I was, yeah, dude. And that's the thing too with that is like, there's still that baseline, like in that instance, there's still that baseline understanding and training that I know that everybody's gotten, right? Like, I don't know exactly how to do the job of some of the other guys that were in the communications section, because I'm just a radio guy. Like, we have like SATCOM guys, and my SATCOM, really, I don't really know too much about it. Like data guys that do all the networking and stuff, and like, I don't know their job, but I know that they know their job, and I know who their kind of senior guy is, and their section head and all that. So like, you have an understanding, like, okay, these guys have been professionally trained in this job. All these guys are for the most part, they've been here long enough to know what's going on, what's expected of them, that if we tell them, hey, show up at this time, to be there at that time, and they have the exemption from work, by law, to be there at time. You know what I mean? Like they have this baseline that you can't get with just a group of guys that you reached out to on Instagram to bring together.
Yeah.
So yeah, it can be like kind of, I think that a lot of people don't understand everything that goes into it. But then on the other side too, like, you have a lot of guys that were in the military and in infantry per se, and they don't know, like, they were like, okay, this is what I did when I was in, this is how I trained, and they're not really taking in the much bigger picture of like, okay, you got told where to go, you went there was food there was water there's ammo there. At any point, if you run out of it, or your trash gets too high, or whatever, that's going to get taken care of by other people. And so like, there's a lot of, I think the disconnect between some of the guys that are, prior, infantry or whatever, or, guys that were in the military and they know about how the infantry runs, or maybe they're not, infantry, but they were in like an infantry unit or whatever. And they don't have like the bigger picture at play, that I think that's kind of the thing that a decent amount of the civilian side are kind of realizing, that like, hey, we need to approach things a little bit differently, because we are our own resupply.
Yeah. Logistics is, when you don't have it, you realize, kind of really quickly how important it is. I've been reading a lot of books about like executive outcomes in Africa, and most of it is about how logistics ran from, like, how are they going to source parts for their fucking BTRs? Where were they going to get food from? Where are they going to get ammo from? And it's more of a job of like, like, it was entrepreneurship more so than warfighting. It was like, how can we get what we need for the cheapest amount of, possible in the fastest time. And it was, a little bit less about the fighting. It was like, how can we make a functioning unit run?
And then consider that a unit of that reputation, they were called mercenaries by all the media of their time. Mm-hmm. Like, guess what, dude? You're under 1 million sanctions. Like, you are not going to have the same access that, a neighboring country next to you committing war crimes is going to have, because you, to a certain degree, look worse, and it only gets worse. That whole sphere only gets worse. It's like entrepreneurship on steroids, because like, at least in business, you can have a lot of people, like a distributor will just say like, okay, cool, and you just shop around for prices, and you might not even have the luxury of shopping around. You just have to make it work, because there's only one guy that's willing to sell you fuel, or one guy willing to sell you AKs. And it's like, fuck, dude.
Yeah, let alone something complicated like hind parts, like with our boy Neil Ellis.
Yeah.
Sourcing parts and repairing hinds on the fly in the freaking Sierra Leone nightmare. I mean, that's maybe a conflated or larger issue than the majority of guys on the civilian side in the U.S. are going to have to run into. You don't see a whole lot of gunships on Instagram getting flexed, but at least not yet.
Well, the guys that have them know that they can't flex them.
Exactly.
Well,
Every car I'm in is a gunship, so
yeah, exactly. Well, and that's kind of the other thing too, is like you even think on smaller end of the spectrum with just like a vehicle, right? Like if you have platoons that are not even like if you have two squads of guys, so like less than 30, like 20 to 30 guys, you have vehicles to carry 4 of them at a time plus kit. Like all of those vehicles are probably not going to be the same year, make, model, build, any of that stuff, because they're not, guys generally aren't buying fleet vehicles for this.
For weekend LARPing.
Exactly. So, every time that we go out somewhere, it's like you have trucks and you have a car that somebody has that they need to park at the nearest, they need to park outside of the woods, and then somebody else needs to drive them in because it can't make it on the trails. And then you have, Jeeps or SUVs, Subarus, and all that stuff, and all of this stuff takes different parts. Oh, Gio, left for a
my
second.
VPN. I turned off my VPN. I didn't realize I only did it for an hour. Yeah, I keep forgetting.
But yeah, like everybody has different stuff, so even supplying parts for that is going to be difficult. And then like you can't really store fuel long term. I mean, you can get like fuel stabilizers, but I don't know how long, even with fuel stabilizers, that you could store gas.
Like
I mean, even
6
then,
months in ideal conditions, if that.
Yeah, and then like I feel like if you stick it outside, then it's probably going to be even less time. But if you stick it inside like your garage or something, it's just going to make the whole place reek, and you're just going to pass out when you walk.
Big old
in there.
hazard. Like you think
exactly.
having just a bunch of gas in your garage or in a storage shed, it's like, man, it's not going to take much.
But think about like if something bad were to happen here, and I don't know what the comparison is like when Ukraine got invaded, because that's kind of the most like relevant thing that we have. I mean, I guess you could look at like when Israel got invaded, but I think that there was a lot less of people going to neighboring countries. In that case, where it was like Ukraine, people were like, "Oh yeah, my freaking cousin lives in Poland. I'm gonna go live there." But anyway, like I don't know how quick or how easy it was to find gas 2-3 weeks into the invasion, because of how you got to think like so many people are getting it. The supply chain of that fuel getting to those places is probably not in the best shape. So I don't know. I'm not a logistician. Yeah.
So we were. I can't say for what, but I mean I told you guys before we started. But we were discussing the value of relationships for fucking groups and stuff like that, and it might even be something as simple as, hey man, can we just make a deal that if X happens, you'll have this amount of fuel set aside for us, like just put it in cans, we will pay you this adjusted rate, and we're paying you the extra just so you can store it and keep it for us until we go pick it up, which would be like within a week or whatever the fuck. And it's making relationships and deals like that not just like you said, it's entrepreneurship, and not just gets you stuff, but it also sets you up for the future. Ideally, I mean, you could always have someone who's says some stuff, and then the push comes to shove, they'll change their mind or whatever. But I mean, at the very least, you have a framework of your plan. It is better than just sitting there and making assumptions. So it's crazy how much more how deep the rabbit hole goes with all of this stuff, because you start playing this very, very intricate game of like, okay, cool, well, if I know this dude and he can get me this, and assuming he has X amount on hand, and this will be the last time we can ever get this, and we got to ration it, and then it costs fuel to get it over there, and it's going to cost people, manpower. It's just I don't know. I think it's a very daunting problem, and I don't think a lot of guys really give a lot of credence to just how much goes into it. And we're not even talking, like you said, with executive outcomes, we're not even talking about fighting. There's no combat here. This is just to get you there,
Yeah. I mean, I've been seeing a shift too in culture of like, planning, and people need to realize that like networking is what's going to, get you through. Like a lot of these guys need to get off the flat range and read some some business and networking books, and establish some relationships, and actually build their community and realize it's not just about looking cool and having a sub 1 second freaking build drill or whatever.
That's my whole goal. No, I mean
Well,
not that that's not cool, but
unlike how many people, especially online, like you talk to enough people online and you get to these people that only spend time online, like the terminally online people.
Mhm.
Yeah,
they're not enjoyable to talk to.
No.
Like they are just not.
Well, you end up hitting, just like socially, you'll hit a roadblock with them where it's like, okay, cool, we're shifting gears because
Well, not even that. I'm just talking about like normal, just everyday conversation. Like,
well,
if
that's
you're
what I'm
in
saying.
different
Like,
groups or whatever. There's always like a handful of people that are just, they always have like a chip on their shoulder. They're never like, you can never talk to them, and it's like, like people undervalue how much just basic social skills, how far that can get you in most things. I mean, guys that were even cops are saying like, if they forgot their gun or whatever, it's like they didn't really care because they knew like, that they had the they had put all their XP points into speech, so they knew like they could get out of a situation by talking about it, or they could talk somebody down or whatever, because that's just they were more charismatic or whatever.
Mhm.
Like, so like there's a lot of people where like they're
showing up to the fucking armed robbery with hostages with nothing but a megaphone.
Speech over 100.
yeah.
No, I'll talk my way out of this one. No, you guys got to trust me.
Just let me do the talking, guys. I got this.
I mean, there's that book. I think it's like Never Split the Difference or something. It's literally about a FBI hostage negotiator, talking about how to effectively communicate and get people to agree to, what you want them to do without them realizing they're kind of getting screwed out of it, or like
That's
there's
cool.
just
I
a
can't
lot of
read.
Well, if you ask a lot of guys online, it's do this or I'll kill you.
yeah. It's like that's only going to get you so far before you run into a group that is going to call your bluff and or be able to outshoot you.
Oh no, we ran into the entire 75th Ranger Regiment. Surely I can fight them off.
Let me just go sweet talk
what
them.
we're gonna do. I'm just gonna go to the side, show off my sub 1 second build drill. They're all gonna be so like, wow, that's really cool. And then all my guys can.
Damn, I didn't know you were chill like that.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't even need to say a single word.
I don't know, that alpha team leader leading that regiment size formation is probably a fucking retard. So I don't know if he's gonna be able to. I don't know if you're going to be effectively communicate with him. It's coming from a former team leader, so I can say that.
He's going to hit you with one of those, yeah, man, that's real cool. What's your bench?
Sick, cool. Can you bench 315? Didn't think so.
Hey guys, we're all on the same side here. We're trying to fight for the same thing you are. If you give us some supplies and stuff, we'll do all this. Whatever, you could do this whole plan. They're just like, okay, post physique. Like, what the
I'm just gonna send the rabid privates to ball your ass up and hang you from a tree, strapped upside down, just duct taped up.
Yeah, that's when you don't want to put any of your points into speech, but you still need to make your point get across.
Yeah, there's a saying in regiment. There's only two types of rangers. You got strong rangers and you got smart rangers.
Yeah.
There's also a secret third ranger that no one knows about, but we don't talk about
He's
that.
super rare. Yeah, we don't acknowledge him.
The gay ranger.
I think, yeah, the danger ranger. Yeah, when you were in regiment, how many times did you say, "Hey guys, let's lead the way"?
If only ironically.
Jesus Christ.
Only ironically.
Yeah, that's what you say now.
Use of that in Hua was exclusively ironic.
Yeah, but that's like everyone in every comic.
True at this point.
MLS,
Yeah.
that's just,
It's got to be like the sarcastic raw when somebody tells you to do something. Yeah. I don't know. I think that on the flip side, though, like there's like the pros and cons of the military side, but I think that it's kind of funny, like the trends of guys that are taking on like like I said before, like they're priding themselves in never having joined, and they convince themselves to the point that like everybody that joins is like a fucking idiot, and that
which is like, I don't know.
Yeah, and then,
I mean, true, but also not.
Yeah,
well,
you're not wrong.
Yeah, you're not wrong. No, I have like I think just recently I was talking about something with somebody on how like the recruiting methods for the Marine Corps really like like they know their target audience where like you'll go to the Army recruiter and he'll be like, all right, I could offer you like a $35,000 signing bonus. You can go to all these schools, like you get it in your contract to go to Ranger school and airborne school and all this stuff, and you get to pick your job specifically and do all this stuff. And you're like, oh, that's sweet. I'm gonna go next door to the Marine recruiter and see what they do. The Marine recruiter is just like, you could be a Marine, and if you don't join, then you're gay. And you're like, I gotta sign up then.
Shit.
You make a pretty convincing point.
Oldest trick in the book.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true though. I mean, I scored so high on my ASVAB. Like the recruiter was like, you want to go infantry? And he's like, you can go be like a nuclear physicist or something. I'm like, nah, dude, give me that option 40. Like I know what I want. They kind of didn't really know what to do with me until I met with a recruiter who was infantry, and then he got me. But like the guy I was working with before was soft skill. I was like, I don't understand it. I'm like, it's all right. You don't need to.
I had a Cav Scout as my recruiter.
Oh God.
And he was the only. Well, he was real cool about it.
They're like basically infantry, right?
Yeah. They're basically Rangers.
So true.
Yeah, but they have horses.
But not as much basically Rangers as Marines, right?
True.
Dude, I've heard that one so many times.
Wait, have you heard that?
I've heard it.
Yeah, I've heard it. I'm like, but Rangers are just like Marines. And I'm like, God damn, dude, that's a bold statement to make.
Yeah, that is a pretty bold statement. I've never jumped out of an airplane.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that makes me...
I'm not gay.
Yeah, I've never jumped out of an airplane. I'm not gay, so we can't do this. No, but my recruiter was a Cav Scout, and I had a similar circumstance, high ASVAB score, and he's like, "Yeah, dude, so you can pretty much do whatever you want to do." And I'm like, "Is infantry open?" And he's like, "The first recruiter I had, pretty much the same shit. The first recruiter I had is like, "Are you sure?" Why?
And then I got the Cav Scout, and he's like, he kind of even looked at me. He's like, "You're sure about this, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Okay, cool." And then he just didn't ever bring it up again. I don't know. It's just a weird thing. It's the brain. It's what happens when you watch Platoon so much. Although that doesn't explain Tyler. But I think if you would have watched Platoon, you would have joined the infantry.
I've seen Platoon.
When did you see Platoon?
I don't know, dude. I've seen it. Seen it a couple times.
It's the one with the alien, right?
I probably watched it. What's that?
It's the one with the alien where he goes invisible and he shoots the stuff over his shoulder.
Yeah, sure. No,
Fucking idiot.
Got him.
No, when I was younger, I would exclusively watch like the military channel, and I'd always watch
same.
Like I had these. There was like a couple of YouTube videos I'd watch back when YouTube was like 10-minute limits for the videos. So I'd have playlists which were like all 8 parts to these like documentaries of like Marine snipers and all this stuff, and that's what I wanted to do. Like for the longest time, most kids growing up are like, I want to join the Army and go do the most high-speed thing ever. And I was like, I want to join the Marine Corps, be a sniper. My dad was in the Army, and then my older sister and then her husband were both in the Army. And so they would, once I got a little bit older to the point where I could actually like start thinking about joining, I remember like they would try to, not my dad was kind of like, yeah, do what you want to do. He also was like, you shouldn't go infantry though. But my sister and her husband were both like just telling me stories on how like the going to Marine infantry is like the worst thing I could do and all this stuff. And he would so he was in Iraq, and he would tell me loud like the Marines are just dumb because like when they would have a bunch of insurgents in a building, the Marines would just keep sending guys in to go kill them, and then like the Army would just level it with a tank. And that was like, they're like, we don't like you're gonna die basically. And so then when I was 17, when I was in my junior year, the summer between junior and senior year, I went to the recruiter and I was like active 03, like active infantry, and they're like, okay. I had like an obnoxiously large or like a really high clerical score. So they're like, "Are you sure you don't want to go admin?" I was like, "Fuck no."
Fuck no.
But I joined, and I was going to go active infantry, and then because I joined before my senior year, I had like a year before I actually was able to leave. And then in that time, I was talking to one of my buddies who was active infantry, and he was in Hawaii, and he was like, "Honestly, dude," he goes, "it's not it." He goes, "There's no wars going on. There's no countries that need to be invaded that they're going to send Marines to." He said, like, all we do is go to the field for a couple weeks and get rained on the whole time because we're in Hawaii. We go back, we get hazed, and we clean our rooms, and then they make it a way to haze you like through cleaning your room, which now is just, you know, getting belligerently drunk on field day. And he's like, "I wouldn't do it." And I was like, "Yeah, maybe not." And then at the time too, I thought that I was going to like pursue music as a job because I was doing that stuff. And so I was like, "Okay, I'm going to go to the
SoundCloud rapper."
Yeah, exactly. I need to go be a SoundCloud rapper. So then I went to the recruiter and I switched and I went reserves. And then they were like, "Oh, there's no infantry available." Because like for active duty Marine Corps, like you choose your field and then they basically assign you like your individual job within that field. But then for the reserves, you pick your specific job because they only have so many slots for different jobs. So I looked and all of the jobs I wanted to do, which the main one was like assaultman, which isn't even a job anymore.
That sounds super cool.
Yeah. And like machine gunner and
What
stuff.
was it, 351?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. 0350 none now. But those ones were at a duty station like a little over like 2 hours away. And I was like, I don't want to do that. So then they had like radio operator and combat engineer. And then the two were at different units and I didn't know anything about them. So I picked radio operator, went to my unit, and I've been having a fantastic time. So that's how I went from obsessing over like Scout Sniper documentaries as a kid to just being a little old man with a radio.
Yeah,
1 week in a month.
Meanwhile, when I was billeted as an RTO, I fucking hated my life.
Dude, I don't
It was like the
really
lowest.
radio side
It
either.
was like the lowest fucking point of my enlistment was fucking being an RTO. Which, funny enough, I look back at it and I'm like, man, I sucked at the radio. Like,
Yeah,
you don't realize it at the time, but you're just like, God damn, dude, I didn't know shit. Because we never got like a real course on how to be an RTO. Like S6 pulled us in to like a classroom and we were there for like a week, and we learned stupid shit that I never did. Like, oh, this is how to set up an OE254. Never set up an OE254 ever after that. Never saw anyone set one up outside of a headquarters fucking company or anything. Never. Okay, this is a SingGuards. You're only ever going to use it on single channels plain text. And it's like, oh, fuck, man. Just all this shit. And then I get to my fucking, I go back and I don't know shit.
That's the funniest thing is because that's what I would have to do back when I was the, you know, one of the six guys.
Nerd.
Like, yeah, like they would have like things where all like field ops where all of the infantry team leaders throughout all the companies were doing like a squad leader course or whatever. And then like part of it was for, you know, radio stuff. So then I'd go there and I would like teach them how to do radio stuff. And then they'd be like, hey, we're about to shoot in a couple hours. You want to shoot with us? And I'd be like, yes, I do. Or they'd be like, hey, go to this thing and help these guys out because their radio's broken. I'd go there and it'd be like a machine gun course. And they'd be like, hey, do you want to shoot machine guns? I'd be like, yes. And then, yeah, that was that. One time I got yelled at for driving too fast to deliver batteries because there was people walking around I didn't see. They're all wearing camouflage, so you can't really blame me. But yeah, and then they'd have like all the like company radio operators, and I'd have to like teach them on how to do stuff. But generally they would have to set up OEs because that's how it goes. But no, I mean it's funny. Like we're telling these stories and talking about this stuff, and it's like, you know, a lot of the soft skills that we got like just in like low enlistments, right? Like or short enlistments, like even just how to get to the point where you can stand in front of a handful of people and present a plan that you've made, even if it's like just small like OODA loop type of shit. Like, hey, you know, this is so and so wants us to move all this shit from here to here. Okay, this is how we're gonna do it. You go do this. You take this. You know what I mean? Like, you guys do this because this stuff's heavier. We're gonna put this stuff in first. Like, we're going to load this quad con this way. So there's all these like different little soft skills that a lot of guys that are outside of this realm of things that are getting into it like need to pick up somehow. And we were talking before too about like leadership courses instead of solely shooting courses, because like in all honesty, like teaching yourself how to shoot fairly well really isn't that difficult. When you start getting to like PRS stuff and some of the handgun stuff and all that, it gets a little bit more difficult. But like I've never gone to a professional shooting course outside of, you know, what I've learned in the military, which is still not that much because
that's why you shoot like shit.
Exactly.
No,
but I haven't needed to shoot yet, so it all adds up. You
don't understand. I'm the radio man. You don't
exactly.
get it.
This is my rifle.
You're not going to shoot a guy with glasses, are you?
No, I'm going to shoot you twice.
You're right. I'm going to fucking stab
one for
you.
each set of eyes, bitch.
Oh, but I mean, no. There's, we've had one Shepherd on before, and we had Adam from Spiritus, and we talked about Tusk.
Yeah, I was just listening to that one.
There are really only, you can count on one hand the amount of like civilian available, quote unquote, like martial leadership courses at all. And I mean, Tusk is there because my experience was definitely like being thrown right back into doing some leading dudes that have no common background, which is I think that's just kind of lost in a lot of dudes. It's like, dude, you have nothing in common with the people that you might end up being in charge of or being around. Like the only thing you have in common is geographic proximity. But I mean, like we said, in the military, it looks everyone's been through the same shit. Everyone speaks the same language.
For the most part, I mean, you take like a Ranger School, and I'll try and keep this from devolving into Ranger School stories, but like you have guys from literally every part of the military. You have foreign military. You've got freaking Air Force. Like you have, about as close to maybe outside of at Tusk or whatever, just very varied backgrounds of guys, and you're going through the absolute shit together. You're not sleeping, you're not eating, so everyone's hangry and pissed off, and over time, by the end of it, you guys are a pretty functioning team. But at the beginning, like in Derby, and then in Mountains, once it gets whittled down and you're working as a platoon size element, it's very much growing pains, and not a lot of guys know how to in the military. Like you kind of get better at it, but not a lot of the enlisted folk know how to handle interpersonal communications without yelling at someone. So it gets interesting.
No, and I mean, that was one of the takeaways from Tusk, and I'm sure that one Shepherd is similar to where that's part of like leadership, just talking to dudes and like knowing when to yell and knowing when to kind of sit a dude down and be like, all right, man, this is what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, it works for different people. Some people need to be yelled at and some people that doesn't work for them.
Yeah.
I've pretty much always been like a pull up to the side and be like, hey, what's going on?
Joe Hugger.
There was one time, there's been 2 times where I've like deliberately yelled at somebody. And one time it's a dumb story. And the second time it's also a dumb story, but it was in front of the entire battalion. So it was hilarious.
Nice. Good for you.
Yeah. And everybody was surprised because they're like, I've never seen you yell or get even angry. And I was like, yeah, I shouldn't have to, right? Like we're all adults here.
Well, I mean, that's usually when everyone's like, oh shit. Like so-and-so's yelling.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I've never seen that motherfucker yell. This must be bad.
Well, I wasn't even planning on yelling either, but we like one of my buddies came up to me, and he's also an NCO, and he was like, hey, so-and-so, like we had just gotten done telling all of our guys like how they're getting a little too lax around the NCOs, and I'm always a pretty relaxed guy. Like if you don't say good morning to me when you pass me, like I don't care. I'm not going to get upset over something like that. And like, whatever. So we just got kind of told everybody like, hey, you guys need to, remember that this is still like a military and, there's still rules here and stuff. Like if somebody who's, if you're sitting there bullshitting with somebody in the smoke pit or playing cards or whatever, and they're, the rank above you, but then they tell you, hey, this needs to get done. Like you need to know when to turn off work and play kind of deal. then like right after that, we were all in like formation for this thing, and then we were having like our little Warriors night powwow after this after mountain warfare training, and this kid was just like talking in formation. He's always been like the problem child, and so somebody turns around and tells him to stop talking because you're not supposed to talk in formation. We're about to sit there. I think it was like during this this like whole like ceremony for this thing that was going on, and he just like told him to shush back. And so anyway, we were like, all right, that's kind of weird. So and it happened like a couple times. So then afterward, my buddy finds me and he's like, hey, this is what happened. You want to go talk to him with me? And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll be there and help you out. And we go there, and I just saw this kid's stupid fucking face, and I just lost. I was so mad. I don't know why. And then, yeah, that was that.
Good talk.
No,
that was funny.
Yeah, it was pretty good. But so right now, I just finished for the most part planning this thing. So I'm not going to go too into the weeds on the plan or anything, just because we have an op for, and I know that some of them may listen to this before it happens in a couple weeks. But we're planning like a whole like FTX thing that it originally started because it was going to be like an evaluation for my group of guys. So what my thought process is that if you have an evaluation that you do in the winter and the summer, and then you have shooting standards and physical standards that you just make sure that everybody does in the spring and the fall. You said the stuff to make sure like they have the capabilities to, have a baseline shooting capability and a baseline physical capability. You do that under like, ideal weather conditions when it's not too hot, not too cold. And then for the actual like evaluations, you should do that when it's shitty and, too cold or too hot. So we're planning this whole thing. And then it was originally just going to be like hey, we're just going to make everybody hike for a really long time and, limited sleep and have some sort of demonstration that everybody knows their roles and, the normal battle drill kind of stuff. But then a buddy of mine on Instagram was like, hey, a bunch of us are coming into this area in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan around this time. And it was like the next weekend. And he was like, would you, want to meet up and hang out and stuff? And I was like, so I'm going to be up there, like right in that same area, like a week prior. If you guys can all shift it to the left a week, then, if you guys want to do that and play like op for us, just for the hell of it, have a party and come out and shoot at us, that's fine. So it ended up evolving. And so a bunch of us are getting blanks and all that and BFAs and trying to figure out how we're going to, which it's probably just going to be yelling, but for all the guys that have like pin and weld uppers, for example, like they can't run blanks if they don't have a pin and weld A2 bird cage. I think there's like a Surefire can that's like a BFA or something.
It's very expensive.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a pain in the ass.
Yeah. So this is also like kind of something funny that we've run into with just like civilian side of things. And then obviously there's the inevitable like, hey, I tried to get it off of work, they denied it, I have to work that day, or something else that's going on. And hey, family stuff is going on, I can't make it. And you can't blame guys for that, right? Like it's not their fault if they have family stuff that obviously takes precedence, but it's more stuff that you have to deal with and more like friction with the whole thing. So now it's a matter of like, okay, for these guys that can't get, quote unquote evaluated at this time, or, on the flip side, all the guys that are going that are, because like team leaders, myself, like everybody, we're all kind of evaluating each other. So like everything that I fuck up from the point of like issuing out the op boards or making the plan of something or disseminating information, everything that the team leaders screw up in terms of making their plans and all that stuff, like we're not passing information good enough, then their team members can tell them like, hey, you could have done this a lot better and all that stuff. So it's kind of like an overall evaluation of everybody. But so it gets to the point where it's like, okay, now I don't know that this guy that I have never had any sort of serious hardship with is going to be able to do the task if there is hardship surrounding that, or you haven't eaten in a couple days, or you haven't eaten as much as you'd like to, and you're a little bit tired, you're a bit hangry, like you said in Ranger school, How do I know that your attitude is going to stay fine and you're not just going to completely collapse and not be able to function? So that's kind of another point that I need to figure out is like all the guys that couldn't make this because of other things going on in their lives that they're trying to balance. Now, how do I make sure that they're all good and that they all know their jobs and all that stuff? And then for the guys that are always unavailable but still want to be a part of it, but it's getting to a point where they're kind of stagnating and not able to do anything, and taking up a spot like in a team or whatever. Like, at what point do you tell them like, hey, just come back when you're more available? So there's a lot of these like civilian side considerations that you don't necessarily need to do in the military. But I think that the end result is that the civilians that are able to dedicate a lot of time and thought and stuff like that, and not just, one time a month or whatever, but able to do things like between meetups and that they're always motivated to learn more and stuff like that. Like they generally end up being a lot more pleasant to be around than the majority of guys in the military that are like, might get the attitude of like, I'm only here because I'm forced to be paying me.
I'm only here because I'll get fined.
Exactly. I will go to prison if I don't go
to prison. I mean, yeah, that's the thing. Like you were saying, like you can't threaten people with you better fucking show up or you're going to jail because
there's no
you can't do that
for like friends.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna give my friend an Article 15.
Exactly.
Yeah, you better be outside of your house at 5 a.m. I'm gonna
come in and inspect your house. Yeah.
I'm coming over to watch you carry the boats.
Coming over to make you build a boat so you can carry it.
We're going to recreate Noah's Ark, and if you aren't there to be a part of it, you're fired. You're going to go in prison in my basement. Next to the boiler where it's really fucking humid.
I forget y'all cold weather people have like boilers and fucking
that's wild.
Heaters.
It's pretty uncommon. My house is just very
evil.
Most houses around here have furnaces, and air conditioning. No, I don't have air conditioning, and I have a boiler.
That's fucking nuts. There reminds me of Germany. I got surgery in Germany, and it's a big hospital in Regensburg. You would think it'll be like an American hospital.
No, that's like air conditioning
laying there in front of one of the walls was just all window, and I'm right next to it. And I was getting cooked by the sun, just laying there. I'm like sweating, and I have like a drain pipe going to this little Nalgene bottle, just leaking blood from a surgery. And I'm just laying there like, man, what the fuck?
Getting baked.
It was fun though. I always tell people the same thing. I used to smoke at the time. So I fucking hopped on one leg on the second day, and I took a wheelchair from the hallway and I wheeled myself around. And I found like an area where people were smoking, and I just bummed a cigarette off of them.
It's Europe. It's just inside everywhere. They're like the 70s there. No air conditioning, smoke wherever you want.
That's how the bars were. Like you go inside anywhere.
Inside.
Everyone just smoked. It was just, you just got used to it. Eventually, you don't smell the cigarettes.
Well, that's like there was one time where I was curious. Like, did everywhere in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s just smell like cigarettes? And I looked up a thing to talk about that. Like, were people conscious of the smell? And some boomer was like, there was like some thread, and some boomer responded to it because other people have had this question before, and they're like, the 80s didn't smell like cigarettes. Cigarettes smell like the 80s.
God. Well, the thing with cigarettes is if you smoke, like you'll never smell that shit until you quit smoking, or you've taken like a break or whatever the fuck. So if everyone's smoking, no one smells it. You'll smell anything else. You won't smell cigarettes. It's fucking weird.
Yeah, I don't know.
Don't smoke. It's a bad habit. Don't do it.
I have a pack of Lucky Strikes on my op score. I don't know what you're talking about.
Are they the filtered or unfiltered?
Unfiltered, baby.
Okay.
Man,
they're the emergency. It's in a soft pack. It's bungeed on the back. But it's got the cellophane on it, so it should be good.
Oh, so it's protected. It's safe.
Mm-hmm. That's what me and my boys did on our 21 deployment. We all were different spots. We all had Luckies on the back of our helmets because we could get away with it overseas. Garrison, hell no.
I was gonna say, like that's the thing too, is like from what I've gathered, like Ranger Regiment is a lot more It's a lot closer to like conventional army in terms of what you're able to get away with.
It's hard, right? Because we have our blue book, like our standards book, right? And we have different levels of uniforms for like civilians as well. So when we like half my deployments were, I was wearing civilians most of the time, unless we were doing like a mission or going to the range. And they're very specific on the type of civilian PTs you can wear, and like there's whole levels of, they call them roughs, which is like would be equivalent to like your like basically your field uniform. Then you have a step above that, and then a step above that for like the equivalent of dress uniform. But in garrison, they're very kind of anal about shit. But when you get overseas, like depending on the duty, like the spot you're at, like things were super chill, like calling your team leader by his first name, kind of shit. And regiment kind of suffers from wanting to be the standard bearer of the army and then wanting to be a functioning special operations unit, right? Because in garrison, like, you can't grow beards. Like in SF or in Delta, you can have a beard pretty much. I think depending on, for SF guys, it kind of depends a little bit more. But like in regiment, you can't even have a mustache. Like they're very strict about that.
Wow.
Yeah.
No tankers. No tankers.
They're like, that shit's gay. But then there's also, we're also pretty lax. Like a lot of the times we wear PTs all day. Like if we weren't, doing admin stuff or going out to the range, like you're in PTs for the majority of the day, doing hip pocket training or doing classes, cleaning weapons, prepping.
I was about to ask what like the average day looks like.
Yeah, I'm down to go over it. So it kind of depends on your, like what kind of week it is. So there's P1, 2, 3. A P1 week is like a training week. So like you're expect to be working long, weird hours. So like you're going over to a range, or you're going out to a live fire site for a week, or doing some off post training, for a couple weeks. Then you have your P2 week, which is basically like a prep week, coming in at, 06, getting off, 1700. Then you have your P3, which is like a recovery week, where a lot of the times we'll get the 09 work calls. It's like, hey, come in, we got to do layouts and like clean some weapons and, do a couple of PHA shit or whatever. And then you're off, potentially by 1 or 2.
Wow.
But it really depends on, what you're getting ready for. So if we were getting ready for like platoon live fire, like the week before, we're making sure, like if our squad was tasked with a specialty breaching tool or a part of the plan that requires like a broco or a quickie saw, or if we were going to be breaching like a trench line or whatever, like we'd get spun up on that specific part of the plan and just do like dry rehearsals prior to going, build any kind of, like for wall shots, for example, like you got to cut out like pieces of plywood in a certain dimension. So we'd like prep everything, make sure you go to the ranger issuing facility if you need like new uniforms or gear or whatever. And it's kind of just like planning and getting all your logistics lined up to actually go out the next week and execute. And those were the P2 weeks and P3 weeks, obviously with the worst. P3 was fun if it was like, a range density week. So we'd go out, usually towards the beginning of the training cycle, and we'd zero our guns, obviously. And then we do, the standard army qual. We do the regiment CQB qual with pistol, rifle, saw. And then we'd move to, specialty weapon ranges. So if you're a grenadier, you're going to go with the grenadiers and shoot your 320 a bunch. If you're a saw gunner, you're going to go with the machine gunners to the machine gun range and shoot a bunch out of your saw type of shit. And it was the same shit every single year. It's literally like Groundhog Day. So it's like, after our range density week, we're probably going to do some kind of mobility training, and we're going to hop on our 1.1s and strikers and get those things going. And then it's like, all right, I know coming up, we got team live fire, and it's going to be the same general, plan. It's going to be, we're going to react to contact, push through, and maybe do a single team clear on a building, like a 2-room building or something. But it was you could very much expect and kind of plan for how shit was going to go, because it was, the same, but it wasn't the same every single year. Like we'd do it at different sites, and it'd be a different type of mission per se for like the live fires and such. But, PT in the morning, you'd go out and freaking get your dick crushed, come back and get to work for the day. But it was very much, we never did, I don't know if you guys do like platoon level PT. It was all very much,
no, we did.
It was all squad. It was like, hey, squad leader's going to go to the office, see what we have to do for the day, see if we have to send anyone out. And then squad leaders are going to go take their guys and conduct PT at the squad level, which is nice.
Wow. No, so we would sometimes at my first unit we would break out for squads a lot, but they would be like half squad or like 3/4 platoon and then 1/4 squad PT. And obviously never the gym, which is the conventional. the infantry is afraid of the gym.
No, I mean maybe conventional infantry, but that was
no.
We had 3 gyms on our compound.
No, I've seen pictures of the Ranger gyms, and I'm like, God,
they're
damn,
so
dude.
nice.
Everyone's just a power lifter in the fucking Ranger battalion. Jesus Christ.
I honestly, like my first squad that I showed up in, like they're like, yeah, we don't really run here, and they were all just fucking massive dudes. And I was like a runner at the time. Like I came into the army I ran track. Like I didn't do a whole lot of lifting. I knew how to lift, thankfully. But they're like, yeah, we're gonna go hit the gym. And they're like, what's your max? Literally, what's your max bench? And I'm like, I can do 185.
Oh, sorry, you can't be a ranger.
Yeah, literally.
Like, yeah, and of course it's right after RASP, right? So the last thing you've seen is the inside of a gym.
Yeah, literally. And like you do like the raw assessment, which is like an in-gym like PT test to a degree, like the last week of RASP. And like that was the first time I'd seen a gym for a minute. But yeah, I showed up and it's like a squad of meatheads. Like one of the team leaders was really into running. But the majority of them are like, yeah, we're going to go, it's chest day. So drink some pre. And I was like, this kind of chill. I kind of like this.
That sounds lit.
I got big pretty quick. Thank God. But
yeah, there's always like in like Marine Corps bases, like, like we have in like 29 Palms, which is I think that's by the Army NTC out in the Mojave Desert. Yeah. So there's a little place called Camp Wilson that's on it. And it's like it's kind of by all the live ranges and all the big ranges and stuff. So generally the units that are training there for ITX, which is like the big thing that all the units are supposed to do. It's like a pre-deployment thing too. I don't think it's pre-deployment anymore, but it used to be like pre-deployment for Iraq, Afghanistan, is that you just do like ITX. Before that, they called it Mojave Viper. But anyway, you go to Camp Wilson and there's like these big Quonset hut things that you can sleep in, and you can't turn the lights off or else all the roaches that are 6 feet long start crawling out of the spray insulation walls, and it's really spooky. But there's like a little tiny diner in there. It's called the Warriors Club, and if you ask anybody that's been around and like they know what they're doing, or they know like all the kind of niche things, and you ask them like, hey, if you're in 29 Palms, where's the best place to get ice? They will 100% tell you the Warriors Club in Camp Wilson, because like it's hot as balls there. Like there was one time that I was out there and we were doing like a defense. We did like a mechanized assault and then went into a defense. And they had to keep calling ceasefires because helicopters were evacuating guys on a couple of ranges out because it was 113, 114 degrees. And you're just sitting out there baking in the sun, and it's like a pretty
sounds like hell, man.
Yeah, it's like a pretty important thing that they like keep bringing ice out, so that way like you can fill your bottles with ice and all that. But
must be nice shit.
Yeah, well, either that or you die. Like, dude, it's 113 degrees. You're standing out under, at the most under cami netting in full kit, like all day.
Dude, at my last field exercise was the one I heat catted in. Like it was the last one, and finally
did you get the
happened. No, I watched a bunch of people get it, but because I was, dude, it sucks because it's like it sucks to say this, but like I was the first heat cat because it was me and one other dude, and we were tasked to breach a Mondwar obstacle. So I did it fucking by doctrine. I threw the stupid grappling hook. I did the crow's foot, then crawl a little bit, do it again. We did it, and we're doing it in full mop in the middle of summer in fucking Central Texas. And our Bradley is right behind us, and the little bit of air you can get is just fumes from the Bradley.
Oh, delicious.
Dude. And we're in full mop with pro mask. Like,
breathe air.
It wouldn't be real fucking full mop if you weren't in your gas mask. So you're in full kit, all this bullshit. Finally breach it. Finally cut it. The rest of our squad's behind us, shooting at like 3 fucking silhouette targets on a hill. Just pass. I never even noticed the targets. That's how fucking tunnel visioned I got. And I get to the Bradley and I start seeing like triple. And then I don't quite
yeah.
remember what happens. We dismount, and then everything just comes in like stages. So I just remember dismounting, and we're running for a bit, and then I don't remember anything. And then I remember kneeling there, and my squad leader's pouring fucking like canteen water onto my wrists. And then we go somewhere else, and all of a sudden I'm in a trench line, and I'm like, and I'm just dry heaving. And I look to my left, and the other dude that did the breach with me is vomiting, like just all over himself. And I look to my right, and I can hear people dry heaving. And I just remember putting my M4 on full auto, like looking at a target and just shooting at it, and then just fucking dropping them back and locking the bolt to the rear.
Yeah.
And then I was just kind of like, I just put the gun down and I kind of like stumbled backwards. And then before I knew it, I'm in the back of a fucking 113, like stripped down in my underwear. And then it kept getting loaded. Like, I'm like, holy fuck, dude. Like half of our fucking platoon went down as heat cats. It was bad. We didn't prepare for it at all. And then we did it in the hottest part of the day in woodland fucking mop gear. And it was just, there was no workup for it. So we finally get back.
Not having someone there to lead the way.
I know, right?
No.
We got fucking crushed.
I got like two kind of relevant. I mean, they're not really stories, but I guess they're kind of, because we were you and I, Tyler, when we were talking, you know, kind of earlier about like the differences between, you know, special operations and like straight infantry, and then how does that relate to civilian side of things? So, and then specifically Ranger Regiment, right? We're light infantry at the end of the day too. Like we can do normal infantry company battalion size roles of, you know, movement to contact, shit like that. And we do at least once a training cycle these things called long walks. Basically, we do a company size movement through the fucking woods. Sometimes in, you know, plate carriers, sometimes with just like a Rhodesian in a ruck. And my first one that I ever did was up in the mountain phase up in Dahlonega. We just went up there for training, and I heat catted. I was carrying a Skedco. You know, I was wearing my op score. I had my freaking battle belt on, my plates, carrying a bunch of water, and I had my freaking Peltors down, just baking in my helmet. This was like in May, I want to say, of 16, but it was hot. And we get to the top of this hill. We were just hitting these NAIs, and we were taking contact, you know, from Op 4 to every single NAI, just going up and down these mountains. And I freaking heat cat at the top. I had to get a freaking IV pushed. But that shit's brutal. Like when you're wearing, you know, plates, like at least with a ruck, like you got some separation, you get airflow off your back, and you're not like encased in this armor. And then the other one is, I don't know if you guys have read about Operation Grain Sword, or if you guys even know what that is. No. There's not a whole lot out of it. I think I can talk briefly. I'm not going to get into the details, but basically it was a 3rd Ranger Battalion operation in Afghanistan, in a very mountainous province, and they were basically doing a very large movement to contact, like we do in training, and they were moving during the day, and they took just a bunch of heat casualties on the side of this mountain under contact, and like the resupply is fucked up. They dropped the pallet of water like way down the valley.
Watch it explode as it
literally like as these guys are just sucking cock on the side of this fucking Afghan mountain. And there's pictures that I've seen circulating around of a dude who lost some of his SI, and the fucking Taliban found that shit, like we're posing with it, like his scar, his suppressor, Jesus. Like he lost his cat card too, which was wild. Which is, you know,
do they draw a burqa around it?
But
put it
was,
we're getting a login from Kabul. What's that about?
What? From this mountain cave.
You just get an email like your platoon sergeant, and it's like, you from Kabul. It's like, hey, can I get a proctor code for this course I need to do?
Hey, your med pros is out of date.
But
you guys have those, right? Like
yeah.
Well, I had proctor codes that you need.
I'm not sure. I didn't do a whole lot of online training.
Oh my God. Good for you.
We have like mandatory Marine Net classes that you're supposed to take to be eligible to promote, and like, I mean, we'd have that for like prior to like BLC and shit. Like you had to do like a little bit of online stuff, but yeah, it's different than like the JKO courses. But like the Marina, it's like, I guess it's technically like an online college, but you'll get like, for instance, like to pick up like corporal, you have to do like the Lance Corporal's course, and it's like 5 or 6 or whatever sections, and then like when you are a corporal, you have to take like the corporal's course, and it teaches you like all the different things of like admin and infantry skills and stuff, and then like you get a sergeant, and then you got to do sergeant's course and all that. But anyway, to take the tests, you have to get a proctor code. So like somebody who's a rank above you at least needs to give you, like, they need to go onto their Marinet, generate a proctor code, and then give it to you. And in practice, you're really or in theory, I guess, you're supposed to be like with them. So like if you are my, staff NCO or my NCO above me or whatever, and you would create a code and then basically sit there to make sure I'm not cheating. But then how it goes is that everybody just gets the proctor code and then does it in their own time, and they just get it over text. Like guys will text me all the time, be like, "Hey, can I get a proctor code?" So, but not to completely cut off your story, but when I was actually
That's it.
before, I was in Quantico, had a course to be eligible to be promoted. I was at my sergeant's course, and the sergeant major of the Marine Corps came and like talked to all of us. So like you have like, our E5 course, you have the E6, E7, E8, like all these courses are going on at once. And the sergeant major of the Marine Corps wants to talk to everybody about, stuff and just current events and whatnot. So anyway, they were doing like a question and answer portion. And I just started like laughing to myself because I thought about raising my hand when they call on me, just standing up and being like, "Hey, Sergeant Major, can I get a proctor code?" Should not be what you want to ask them. But anyway, continue with your story.
Yeah, I mean that was kind of the whole point, though. Is like we did daylight movement through the mountains of Afghanistan. Sucks, dude. That like doing that in full kit.
I was gonna ask, like, how often do dudes go down as like heat cats or injuries?
Yeah, man, we had. I mean, you see a lot in Ranger School. I was a summer ranger, and there was one day in particular. I think we had like 3 or 4 guys go down. In training, I've seen it happen on a handful of occasions. The few times we weren't doing like squad level training, like if we were doing a platoon, platoon PT, it was usually a fuck down. And there was this one in particular that I remember when I was a private, and we did like a little movement to one of the shoot houses on post and just like did dry runs through it. And then at the very end of it, our platoon sergeant was like, "All right, you're dead. We're running back to the cough," and it's like a 3-mile-ish run. And my buddy went down on that one, my private buddy, my squad. And I was like pulling up the rear with the third private in our squad. And he had gotten there first because he went down as a heat casualty. And I just hear him screaming at the entrance of the cough, getting the silver bullet.
Oh, geez.
Just screaming like, yeah. So it happens semi-frequently. Like there's several guys that are like heat cat in Ranger School, and the shitty part is like, to stick in regiment, you do have to go to Ranger School and get your tab. Like you show up as a private after RASP, you got to go to get your tab to stay and to hold a leadership role. And if you heat cat during Ranger School, like you're not allowed to go for like the summer months or like half the year. So you have to go during the winter. Like you have a very specific window.
Wow.
Because they don't want to, because once you heat cat once, like apparently it's significantly easier for it to happen again. Right. So
like concussion.
Allegedly. I don't know. Look, okay, I haven't been in full mop since it fucking happened to me, but
yeah. I don't think it's true because I heat catted that first story I told, and then I went through during the summer, and it sucked, but I was fine. But they do that just as a precaution, right? Like there's no point in like it's policy, whatever, Army shit. But it sucked for dudes that because there's one dude that I know that heat cat, and then he just wasn't able to get back during a winter course, so he ended up getting out of regiment without his tab. At the end of his contract. So he was an older guy though too. He was like in his middle 30s. He looked like a fucking sergeant major, like undercover boss kind of thing.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I'm gonna get him on my podcast at some point. But he was a cop prior to, and he had like been in like gunfights prior to joining the Army. So he was cool.
Yeah, that's like a good point to bring up though, is like how common heat casualties are, especially for guys that are in like the South.
The South,
it's brutal.
Or
it was brutal.
whatever. So like, I don't know what kind of medical infrastructure is required for somebody that gets a heat casualty to make sure that they didn't like actually fry their brain.
Ice
And then
sheets.
also,
Ice
like-
sheets.
what's that?
So ice sheets, it's basically you have like when you're doing any kind of like PT or hot weather training, like you're going to have your medics on standby with what are called ice sheets. It's literally just bed sheets in this fucking cooler with ice and like cold water. And so a guy goes down, you basically wrap him in those to bring his core body temperature down because there is a risk of you frying your brain for sure.
So like, at what point would there ever be a point where you wouldn't want to do that because it's like the being really hot and then the instant cold could like put you into shock or something? I don't know shit about that.
No, because if you're putting someone in an ice sheet, it's more important to cool off their body quickly than it would be to like put them. Like it's more dangerous to leave them like that and like try and stave off shock. At least from what I've read, and then you know what we've been told because I've been in the heat quite a fucking bit. I'm just trying to read into that shit, but it's literally if you're ice sheeting someone, you're about a step away from calling 911.
Yeah.
Or like
Well, that's what I'm talking about is like in like post event or whatever you want to call it. Like, you know, you have your little team of guys and you're trying to go do a movement or something like that, or you're doing whatever, just working outside, who knows, and somebody goes down as a heat cat. Like, how do you like do your guys who and that what I've found to be the hardest position or like the hardest role to fill in like a civilian private group is like a good medic, like guys that have EMT certs and stuff like that are already kind of rare, it seems, these days. I think that there's like a pretty big shortage on EMTs, so and then you run into the normal thing where like because it's pretty easy if you have something as far as like like a normal rifleman role, or even to a certain degree like a communicator role, right? Like he's got radio and an ATAC and stuff like that, and just knows when to do radio checks and pass information and whatnot. Like if they're not able to make it for whatever reason and you have to fill that role, like it's really not that difficult. But then taking the medical side, like that's honestly one of the most technical jobs. And like, if anybody can't just figure out on the fly how to like, resuscitate somebody or put in an airway or, do whatever. So as far as training goes, it seems like that's difficult. But
I mean, the best thing with the heat cat is prevention. But I mean, obviously on a patrol or some shit, there's really like other than calling like a long haul and then getting in like a patrol base or some shit or like a defensive position, there's really not much you can do.
Yeah.
Well, and that's one of the benefits of where I'm at is like I think that in Michigan you're never more than like 6 miles away from a natural body of water or something like that. So like the amount of natural water out here is just incredible. Like it's not really a consideration. It's not really something that you need to spend a lot of time considering. Like usually bring a couple of water jugs out as like a convenience thing or as like an emergency thing. But bring a couple of filters and if you have like one of the larger like gravity filters that you can refill a whole team's worth of Nalgene's and stuff, like you're good. Because everywhere you go, there's like rivers and creeks and little ponds, and if you really needed to make do and filter some swamp water or something, you'd probably be fine. I wouldn't do it too much. You might start to like see sounds or something, but you'd probably be good. So that's like definitely one benefit. But like that's the thing that we're kind of what we were originally a lot more kind of scared about, because now that we're getting closer to the time that we're going to do our little event coming up, we're seeing the weather and it's surprisingly warm this winter. But we were like, the average temperature where we were going at this time, and we're doing it a little bit late in the winter season, so that's why we decided to do it so far north. It's like the average high is like 34 and the average low is like 12 degrees. So we were like, okay, knowing how like it's probably way warmer, right? We may get the lucky end, and it's supposed to be a little bit warmer, but it's supposed to rain the whole time.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Well, like if it's cold out, like, hypothermia prevention and who knows the warning signs. And it's a little bit different when you have, like you were saying that there's, you have 3 battalions worth of Rangers three companies.
Mm-hmm.
And so if one guy has to get taken out, like it's going to affect the team to a slight degree, but it's not going to affect the overall operation. When you have like a 20-man team at most, or even a platoon size, right? Like a 40-man, that one guy that's missing makes a much larger impact than when you look at an entire battalion and one guy's missing. Like the
Right.
impact and how it can change and stuff like that is a lot bigger. And so I think that one thing that, to kind of circle back, like, a lot of you'll see arguments. Like I watched a video this morning, I sent it to Gio, and it was some guy talking about why preppers shouldn't try to emulate the infantry. And he makes some good points, like stuff I had said, where you have to prepare like the infantry and to outfit yourself, and like you have to be able to train like the infantry. You have to know these large scale assaults to make the tactics really work for you, because you even you look in the Ranger handbook, and a lot of that stuff is meant for like larger scale operations. Like even your basic react to contact, if you're being ambushed, that's going to be useful. But then when you start talking about traveling Overwatch, for example, like doing 2 fire teams and having one doing traveling Overwatch for the others is not a big deal. But then when you start to get to the point where you need that firepower, you can't have 4-man or 6-man team kind of somewhat isolated with another one, 100 or whatever yards behind them. You start to limit yourself. So like,
I think you just have to adapt at that point. Like you can't send this far away if you're that small of an element.
Yeah,
you can still kind of do traveling Overwatch, but
like you can, but it's that thing like adapting, and then like the other thing too is that kind of, when you talk about adapting, is that I think that the problem with not having as much of like a leadership school that's out there, aside from like One Shepherd or Tusk that we were talking about, is like guys knowing how to adapt. Like if all you do is read doctrinal pubs, like doctrine gives you a foundational baseline to get you on the same page as everybody else. Deviating from the doctrine when it's applicable is what you're supposed to do, right? Mm-hmm. Like your doctrine may say, hey, this is what and this is how you do this maneuver, but then you're out somewhere, situation's different, the terrain's different, and you see like, okay, if we do this, we're going to completely die, so let's do this instead. It's not a doctrinal thing or whatever, and then it ends up working out. So
that's why you always fall back on that 5th principle of patrolling, big dog.
Yep.
Common sense,
baby. Come on.
No, I mean it makes sense, but like you're saying that from a perspective of how many times have you gone in the army and done that? You know what I mean? Like if all you know is like the doctrinal pubs that you've read, the common sense is going to be there. But I think that a lot of guys too are kind of in the mindset where they're like, this might be wrong or whatever. And there's going to be plenty of guys that are like, screw what the pubs say, this is how I'm going to do it.
Well, this is why you have to validate whatever the fuck you learn, right? This is the whole point of training, is you validate. And the guy that isn't getting out there and training, or doesn't have a group, he's always going to be, or doesn't have like that baseline, he's always going to be at a disadvantage because he can't validate what he's doing, and I think that like people kind of get into like arguments online too on like how, because so if we start from the beginning, like you start a group, and then you're going to try to standardize on certain things and train towards certain things that you think are the most likely things to happen, right? Like if you think that if there's like a nuclear power plant in your town, and you think that if something happens that's going to be a big thing, like you're probably going to prep more like Seaburn type stuff than somebody who lives out in the fucking plains, and they're going to like do more long range shooting or long movements and rucks and all that stuff. It's different, right? So you need to think about like what your most likely thing is, figure out like what your kind of strategic value of your area is. And that's kind of the other funny thing is when people
get out in the woods and train all the time. And that's all they do. But then they live in like a suburban town. It's like nobody's going to go out in the middle of nowhere and fight over nothing. Like you shouldn't reject like learning, how to do basic CQB or something.
Yeah.
So figure out like the most likely thing that's going to happen, and then train toward that, and then validate it, like you said. But then, with that, like having some sort of model to go off of is obviously going to be required, right? Like if you're like, okay, the area I'm in, like, okay, doing reconnaissance is going to be a big piece of what we're doing. So then you're not going to look at solely, Delta Force or something like that. You're going to look at, Force Recon or, these different things that specialize in reconnaissance.
There's elements within Delta that do reconnaissance.
Well, yeah,
but I get your point. Where it's not like counterterrorism.
They're mostly CQB stuff.
Yeah,
but you're gonna try to. Well, there's not really too much out there about RRC in general.
Nope.
But Force Recon is a good one, right? Like that's their thing, right? Is reconnaissance or reconnaissance elements, or even taking it back to like Vietnam and looking at how like the LRPs and MACV and stuff like that did all their recon and whatnot. But I think that guys start to get into like the weeds of like, okay, we need to go back to the standard infantry skills, because anything with CQB or any of this is like a hype beast sort of phase that's going to die down. Or even long range shooting is kind of become that thing. And even like reconnaissance was like the recce phase, and which was more of like loadouts than people actually doing anything with
actual reconnaissance.
Yeah, exactly. But so like guys will get in arguments and like, okay, all this stuff is dumb. Like traditional infantry skills are the only thing that matters. But then when you really start to look into it, like you should be looking more into like what insurgencies have been doing, or guys that are in special operations units that have done where they have to be able to split between being low vis and overt and different kind of training others by them, like doing irregular warfare type stuff instead of digging in and making a trench and getting ready for to shoot at tanks.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to see an infantry. You're not going to need to be infantry more than likely in this scenario that you're, in the event or whatever.
I'd argue you'd need to like frame the event. So like if guys are thinking there's going to be some civil war, well, eventually you're going to have to kind of conventionalize, or whoever is the top dog is going to conventionalize, because this is like the one thing I've been reading a lot on. It's like, okay, how does an insurgency win? Like, how do they go from a bunch of dudes with fucking AKs to sitting in the governor's palace with their feet kicked up and a parade outside? And what ends up happening is a lot of the times these groups end up becoming conventional elements, because they gain the following, they gain the support, they gain the material. And then you get that, you get in a position where it's no longer just little squads, but now you can make platoons and companies. And well, if I have a company, I got 100 odd motherfuckers that I can go and hit a fucking base with and like succeed, because I have the numbers and I have the ability and whatever. And that's eventually what leads you to the capital, so to speak. Is just kind of what I was reading. And you'll look at a lot of insurgencies that have stood the test of time, and they are not organized in squads, but they're organized in platoons and companies. And you'll hear them say shit like brigades and stuff. I guess the question is are you more of like the Troubles guy, or are you more of like the FARC? Because the FARC was that more conventional, like large scale units, and they're living in the jungle, eating, bush meat, and then doing like raids on government outposts. Or do you think like the IRA trying to like, and there's no right answer to this, right? Like that's just kind of the conclusion I come to, is everything's a case by case, but you end up with this deal where a lot of guys are in camp insurgent and a lot of guys are in camp infantry, and at some point they do meet. Like I don't think you can start off with a company unless you're just that guy, I guess, and like you figure it out, or like you're like fucking
you're like pre-Gazin, and all of a sudden you've got all of Wagner Group under you, and you're like, you know what, fuck it, let's go.
Fuck it.
I want more fucking ammo. I want more money. I'm gonna march on.
Hey, everybody, turn around. We're gonna go all the way to the back and take that, and then work our way back.
hey, just leave your guns there. Bring your pistols and shit. We should have more than enough.
I guess a good question though to ask is where's the line between irregular or insurgent or whatever and conventional? Like when do you start saying like, okay, now we are more of a conventional fighting force?
So how I look at it is, you need to get to the point to where you even have the access to people. I mean, it's always like, no matter what, a company is kind of cut and dry in the amount of people it has, right? So you end up having to do stuff that bolsters recruiting, and then you're not just recruiting those 100 dudes, you also have to recruit all their support apparatus. So it's really close to like 150, 200 people just to get to that point. So up until then, you're doing a lot of insurgent stuff, but it all has to be pointed and focused. It either has to be shit that's preventing the incumbent military, police, government, whatever the fuck, from defeating you outright because you're a tiny little crew, or it has to be stuff that gets you recruits or money or equipment or whatever. Like, I think that's kind of something that merits its own talk, is like, how does targeting work? Like, how do you, let's say you live in the border states and some fucking bad shit happens and the cartel takes over your county. Okay, well, where do you start? Like, should you be ambushing convoys? Should you be, trying to assassinate key personalities? Like, it's shit like that. That's a very interesting and poised. I don't have the answer to it. It's kind of something I'd have to like sit down and think about. But
I think that just like surface level, I think that with that's when you start to really see the benefit of like what we had kind of talked about last episode, where you should go out and like befriend your local law enforcement and stuff like that, because there's only so much that they can do. And a lot of like small town law enforcement isn't equipped to do this stuff. And they're like, even when you look at overseas, like you look at the military going places, there's small little fucking militias and bands of dudes that are loyal to the cause that the U.S. is trying to do. And, they'll assist. And the trust that the U.S. military is going to have in these people is going to vary. Like, some company commander might go there and really hit it off with their leader or whatever and be like, all right, yeah, these are good dudes. And other people are going to be like, I don't trust them, but, we'll let them go out and shoot first, kind of deal. So I think that that's kind of where you start to also get more intel and whatnot is, when you're able to get somewhat intertwined with law enforcement, and because more than likely, like the most likely, in my opinion, type of event that's going to be some sort of invasion, likely from cartel with like Chinese funding and backing. That's, in my opinion, what I think is the most likely thing that's going to occur. So I could be completely wrong. But in that case, like, law enforcement is on the same side as you. Like, they don't want the cartel there. You don't want the cartel there. I think that a lot of people start to fantasize about like total utter, I think that certain people fantasize about this of like total utter collapse, whole new system in place. Like, we're going to be the ones that are going to, do things the right way this time because the US sucks. Right. And it's like, that's not the case. Like, it's most likely going to be, attacks on the power grid, attacks on different things, cartel going through, trying to control key strategic areas, and then, start funneling in either more cartel, Chinese advisors, whatever, and then do that, because the Chinese can't do like a large scale assault on the US. And also the amount of money and everything that the cartel is already getting from the US is already quite a bit. Like, I can see it being a thing and whatnot. But anyway,
I've never thought about that. Like, that's never even crossed my mind. I mean, obviously cartel activity, but I never thought that the Chinese would potentially, back them.
Well, that's the talk of the town right now. To think about. Yeah, that's the talk of the town, like this week, actually, because you've got a lot of these. You got a lot of footage of supposed like big groups of Chinese nationals crossing over the southern border.
I haven't seen that.
Oh, dude, what? I got like
Yeah.
3 questions about it like yesterday.
I saw a
And
thing that was.
I saw a short clip about it, but I haven't really looked too much into it. I mean,
There's been a lot of Middle Easterners getting across the border, but
That too.
Yeah,
It's been
that's
that
what
too.
I saw. Was like 6 months ago. Like African military age males with like tattoos of AKs on them, like matching tattoos of AKs on everybody, and what looks almost like military IDs.
Me
And
and the
like
homies.
cases on their back that look like rifle cases. What'd you say?
Me and the homies.
And they all have like these backpacks that look like rifle cases, like really long, or like rifle bags, like really long, and you know, and they're just like walking right on through some big old fucking hole in the wall.
That's where I keep my fishing rods. Dude, so just to kind of put it into perspective, so like in terms of how rough manpower is for a lot of places, I did the math. So obviously I live in.
Are you opening up Smarties? What are you doing?
No, motherfucker. What? There's some thing next to me that I stepped on. So like where I live right now, there's a lot of they're police constables, right? So most of them aren't armed, and if they are armed, it's with like pepper spray and a baton. So like nothing.
Karate.
Yeah. So the dude with the machete is king, but so there's a firearms unit, the FRU. And I think the count is somewhere between 60 and 80 armed officers. But the population of here is 68,000. So you've got fuck, man. I keep telling these dudes, like, hey,
1,000 to 1 odds.
Yeah. So you think about it, and that's kind of a concern that me and, our extended family here have is like, okay, so if the boats stop coming here and people start getting rowdy, the police are basically worthless because there just aren't enough of them. And even if you tried recruiting people right away, like this is the weird, like sort of fucking autism that you get when you move somewhere like new and you know all like this area study shit is you'll sit down and you'll start thinking about it. And you're like, who here, like the first thing on my mind was like, who here on the island has guns? Like who are the major players here? But I was mostly looking to fucking apply for a job because, well, your boy looking for work, but
I hear OnlyFans is good for that.
It's been great. So why do you think I live on an island? No, but so it puts it into perspective. It's like, oh fuck, dude, like these are not a lot of guys. And then even the other organizations that you would think, so there's like a military unit here, but they don't carry guns. They're solely like the part of the National Guard that responds to like natural disasters, which is great. I'm glad there's a group like that. It's just kind of funny having them in camouflage and then they have no martial capability. But, even if you wanted those dudes to be armed, like they don't know what the fuck they're doing. They don't, it's no fault of theirs. It's not their job. But like, if things go tits up here, like how many hungry and angry mouths are there going to be versus how many dudes for the government could stop them? So it's a fucking weird perspective problem.
Damn. So you guys have on the one island Gun Bay and Rum Point. This place sounds fun.
Yeah, Rum Point's cool. It has a couple of, what would you expect, bars, right? It's actually a pretty popular place to go drink.
For what,
you go there by
pirates?
boat. For everyone, mostly tourists.
Guys with peg legs and eye patches.
I wish, dude. Sometimes I'll be like doing cardio and I'll just sit there and think real fucking hard about like how cool it would be to be a fucking pirate, but like modern day in the Caribbean. Like imagine the dude that like steals an aircraft carrier. Like you're just like,
oh my god,
pirate ever. You're just the best dude ever. Like they got to call you something wild like King of the Pirates. I'm like, man, dude, that'd be crazy. You're like a submarine. Like if you somehow manage to steal a submarine with or without nukes. I mean, if you have the nukes, you're already like king of the fucking world. Because all you do is if you knew how to run it, just make that thing disappear and then just pop out wherever you want, fire a nuke and then disappear again.
They would hunt your ass down so quick.
Everyone would hunt you down. Everyone would hunt you down. You would be the most. Oh, but it sounds like such a cool story, right? And so I'm like, God damn, dude, like piracy nowadays. Because right now they're just trying to steal like boats, like ships with containers. But like We're the real pirates that are going after military ships.
That would be sick.
That'd be
Manage to get your whole, if you're like a fleet admiral or whatever, manage to get your whole crew to defect, and anyone that doesn't want to gets fucking walk the plank.
Yeah.
That's honestly like going back to how like
they'd probably just put you in there with the reactor, let you cook,
fire you out of the torpedo tube.
going back to like how we said that there's no UCMJ for friends. That's what you do. Always have a plank to walk. That's one thing I haven't seen anybody start doing openly is like littoral preppers, like guys that are practicing like beach assaults and stuff.
I've said it. It's look, you could totally do
I don't
it.
listen to you.
There's one guy there's one guy I know that has like his shit kind of tailored for like the water, and of course he lives in Florida.
Well, yeah, that makes sense.
Is he more of like a swamp kayaker, or is he like I'm getting on the Zodiac and I'm hitting this fucking beach?
Zodiac.
Oh, dude, I want a Zodiac so damn bad.
Yeah, same. The store here has.
You need one out there for sure.
Yeah, no, the store had one, and I'm like, God damn, dude, if only I had a job.
That would be such like an interesting thing, is to find like a very like isolated, remote beachhead, and then just get everyone in the Zodiac and hit it. Like, so one of my buddies, his dad they're like all near me, but his dad has a Zodiac. I should try to get that.
Dude, yeah.
See
My
if we can
buddy,
borrow it.
I had a buddy that was in regiment. He was an intel guy. But before that, he was EOD with the Navy, and he was a total fucking nerd like me. So we got along well. But he bought a Zodiac when he was stationed out in Guam. And he could dive. He could dive too. So him and his other fucking autistic friend, like they would do like night insertions onto beaches, like from their Zodiac.
God,
just straight, on their free time. Like I'm like,
yeah, that's what I'm trying to actually like learn right now. My wife got me like a resort dive for Christmas, and I'm going to start taking diving lessons as soon as I can figure out the time between taking care of a kid and all the other shit I got to do. I'm gonna get my fucking frog man on,
Get your frog man on.
Dude, I can't remember who was telling the story. Oh yeah, this guy that was he was like one of the I&I, like the active staff at like a reserve unit. There's like a bunch of active guys that kind of run the place. But anyway, he was telling a story about when he was stationed out in like Pendleton or something like that, how he took diving classes because the like Marine Corps dive school is really difficult to get into if you're not like dive
a Navy SEAL.
Well, no, if you're not like a recon guy, or if it's not like applicable toward your job. Like even going to jump school is kind of a stretch unless like you're a parachute rigger or recon or something like that. Because like you don't need some fucking random Marine admin guy with like jump wings. Like the cost doesn't make sense. But anyway, so he took like some diving lessons, maybe he was stationed in Hawaii or something. But he was saying that they were going to do like one of their final things to get like some cert or whatever. And the instructor, they're like all sitting in these bleachers, and pretty much the bleachers go right to like a drop off, and you go down and then jump into the water. And the like instructor goes down, and he kind of sticks his head in the water, and he's looking, and he's saying like there's a fuck ton of like box jellyfish just hanging out right there. Nice. And they're like, well, what do we do? And he's like, we're just gonna go in. And so he basically like told them like, push them out of the way, don't touch their stingers. And so everybody's just going through and like gently brushing and like making a little path and just kind of going single file through this whole like fleet of box jellyfish, which I guess are like extremely, extremely dangerous. But
just eat them.
That's true. You could just squeeze them and get jelly out of them like SpongeBob.
Yeah.
I think kind of going back to your question about what's the line between, irregular and conventional. We tangent, but I think maybe a good way to define, and this is just me kind of spitballing after kind of this conversation, but force projection and like, can you like, how well can you match like, the definition of a current military's ability to force project, right? Like, do you have, maybe you got helicopters, right? Like maybe you got some kind of force projection capability that way. And then maybe another way to maybe look at it, are you able to pay your guys? Is it like not a volunteer basis?
Someone else has brought it up. Thank God.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's something
Like,
I've said before.
Not everyone's going to do it for the shits and giggles, right? Like eventually you're going to have to pay your guys, whether that's through, looting potentially. Like obviously no one wants to talk about that shit, but that's traditionally how a lot of militaries would be able to pay their guys. It's like, hey, we're going to get you a share of the spoils of this fucking place that we knock over, whether that's stuff that you can resell or, jewelry or whatever, cash,
property,
and have some kind of quartermaster of some sort to, bring it all in and, assign shares at the end of the day.
So this has been one of my like pet fucking arguments. That's one of my favorite is like payment of dudes, because you're exactly on the money. Like you're getting a bunch of people who are used to putting in labor and getting money out of it. And then now they're putting in 3 times as much labor because, as you know, if you're in the fucking field or an environment like that, you are working 24/7. The only time you get a break is when it's part of your rest plan.
Yep.
So even if it's the day to day, you're still going to be doing shit during the day, and you're going to be doing shit at night because it's no longer as easy as turn off the lights. So motherfuckers are going to need payment. And, like you said, looting's one of them. It's just, it's unsavory, or it's hard to dudes to wrap their minds around. Another one is literally being a mercenary group, offering your services to whoever's around, because I've said it before.
That's what I always think of, like the most likely thing to do is.
I've said
like
that
being security, like a private security kind of thing.
Well, I've said it before. I think some of the most like capable shit you could do if you had a group and you really just had a dude that had a good initial investment. You could totally just start your own security company. And then what you do is you end up monetizing your hobby. Like you could just be a small, however big your group is, and they're all fucking employees. And every time you're training, it's company time. But that means they have to take contracts and do that job, right?
Right.
It's just, and you do this in quote unquote peacetime. You can do this now. You just start a security company with your homies, and everyone agrees, okay, this guy or these 2 guys are in charge, and hopefully there's some good business sense there. But all of a sudden you're Eric Prince with Blackwater, and I mean, let's face it, those dudes were so fucking loyal to Eric Prince that if he said like, "Hey man, we're doing one off the books,
we're crossing the fucking we're crossing the Rubicon."
It's like, hey, we're doing one off the books. Like, you think a lot of those dudes wouldn't just say, all right, whatever you need. Like, come on, man. And it's so interesting. And I'm sure it's happened. I mean, shit, we brought up executive outcomes earlier. How many those dudes didn't have to do that shit? They wanted to. And, probably a lot of them didn't even care too much about the pay.
No. I mean, you look at even go earlier too, Congo. I don't know how much of the Congo conflict you guys are familiar with, but like they were getting paid by stuff that they looted. That was the pay. So if you can do it organized and without traumatizing people, or I guess the people you're taking it from.
Or you're sitting there and you're just selling Saddam's gold, and it's like, all right, here you go, here's a gold brick for you, here's a gold brick for you, and you just go from there.
The security company is a great idea. That's something I've thought about too.
It's just so tough because you basically have to. You're starting a security company. Like there's it's a saturated market, and what people want is not what you want to do.
I want to stand around in full kit and nods with a rifle. It's like
there's places you can do that, but
sure. No. I work for one.
When you had first told me about that idea, I started looking into it and asked one of my friends who's a lawyer, like, hey, what kind of legal stuff would need to be taking care of this? And it's basically a lot of permits and licenses in the beginning, and it'll run you like a little over $2,000 in the beginning to like start doing the whole thing. But then the difficult part that starts to get pricey is like your initial investment is to be able to make sure that all the guys that are in your group are like licensed. And so what starts to get tricky is if you live on like the border of a state and you have guys in your group that live like a state over, or even if you just have like a little bit wider spread group, a little bit bigger, it starts to get to the point where you need to have most of your guys have licenses in like all the states that you encompass. So if you spread out between 3 states, between 20 guys or whatever, like all those 20 guys, if I remember correctly, need to be licensed in all 3 states. So then that way, like, because it's there's something about like if you live, a state over, but you have a license to be private security in another state, like it starts to get weird legally. I can't remember like the specifics of it. I could be completely misremembering what he had said though.
I mean, I have my Florida licenses, my D&G. I had to get them for my previous job, and it's not really hard to get them. It's just if you're doing it at scale, you're gonna have
It's expensive real quick.
Yeah, because you have to pay. So, like, to get your armed security license, either you do some fly-by-night course to get signed off on it, but it needs to be signed off by like a person with a specific license. So there has to be a licensed instructor to sign off on it, and
licensed crack smoker.
And obviously they're trying to make money off of it, so they're going to charge you more than the license is worth. And then if you don't bring your own gun, or if you do bring your own gun, then you got to bring that gun and ammo, and then you got to pass the fucking test, which isn't hard, but it's all this stuff. It'll add up, cost will accrue, and what might have been a $200 license might now be a $400 license, just because of all the other extra shit you got to pay for, and that's per person. So you'd have to have the initial investment to do it at scale, but it would be fucking cool because. And this is something that post 2020, this is an idea that would have been excellent in hindsight, but like, of course, it's hindsight's 2020. Speaking of 2020, that was the whole idea. Is okay, you've got a lot of guys. Like if you have a group, you had a group prior to some massive rioting lawlessness event like that. I mean, if you're a security company, you can make a business deal with this company, that company. And it's going to be a lot better for you in a courtroom than I invited my homies with AR-15s, like because now you have authority to do so. You have credence, and you are licensed by the state to do so.
Well, it makes sense for you to be there.
Well, right. Yeah, this is like the Rittenhouse case, and
exactly.
We can go down that rabbit hole, but it's ultimately you are being paid above the board by a business to defend or provide security services, and you're a licensed and insured security company doing such. And it's just one of those interesting like I don't want to say it's almost predatory, but I mean if you have half a mind business wise, and something bad happens, you might stand to make a fuck ton of money because people are desperate, and of course it's predatory as fuck. Like I'm not saying that isn't, but I mean, it's, I've got something you need and you're not really in a position to negotiate. And that's just what it is. Yeah. I mean,
well, it's more so, hey, I have this service I can provide and I'm not going to do it for charity because I need to eat too.
Well, I mean, not only
depends.
Do I need to eat? It's short notice and there's a high risk because if you're calling me at 2 a.m, like there's a fucking really good reason. Like if it wasn't, then you'd be calling me at 9 a.m. when my office opens. But so it's an idea.
That's a big thing too. Is you think about like if we go back on the whole thing of like cartel invasion, kind of deal, cartel China co-op kind of thing. If you're in a smaller town that just happens to be in like a strategic area, so like
got an interstate.
Well, like near an interstate, near borders, if you live in like a northern kind of smaller town, like next to the Canadian border, next to interstates, all that stuff, those are all like strategic places to go. And, being in a small town like that also would be very attractive for, especially if they're going to grow, some of their drugs locally. So that way shipping it isn't as difficult, whatever. So it's going to get to the point where you're going to have like these small towns where you have a lot of farmers and stuff that are going to have to keep their land safe from the cartel that wants to spread and start, growing more stuff, or even, like a local place that does like some sort of critical manufacturing. Like you might have a place nearby that just I don't know, bangs out fucking steel rods or something, but they make a ton of money doing it, or it's like an essential thing that can easily be taken for more funding by something like the cartel or whatever. And so naturally, these people that have farms and businesses and stuff like that, they're gonna have the money to pay you, but you need to make a case as to like, hey, if you pay me, I will, I have 40 guys and we're going to, split up and separate and do these shifts and have essentially a 24-hour watch going on in your area. So that way we can repel any sort of people that are either salty that you won't give them your land and want to try to destroy it, or are going to try to take it by force or whatever. So that's just kind of an example of like one way that you could start to integrate like paying. But
Yeah.
no, there's a lot of, I think that like
you turn it to guns for hire, you turn it to mercenaries.
I think that modeling after a private security thing is not a bad idea, and then also that's going to give you more funding and then good publicity if you're tied in with
it's above stuff. Board. Yeah, it's all like you were saying, is licensed and insured and signed off on by the state. Like,
well, the other thing too.
I'm not even talking about if you are like an actual real private security company. I'm just talking about you and your,
like if something was to happen and you just
friends
organized it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, even then, so this is kind of going all the way back to the original problem we were talking about, how long it takes a soldier to be made, and like compare that to the average civilian who doesn't have the time or the ability to do some of this training on their own time or of their own dime. So, make it your job. You can now write off all of your gear as fucking business expenses and shit like that. You can
Everyone's going to go buy the quad tubes.
Hopefully not. Hopefully everyone's a little bit more prudent with their money. But,
yeah, for sure.
But I mean, like, it's a very real and salient way to, okay, you're worried about this and you want to be the dude holding the gun, make it your fucking job, man. I mean, if you start a security company and do this shit, and look, this isn't me telling you go file an LLC and then, okay, here you're done. Like, I mean, if you make it your job, that means you actually have to take contracts so you can get fucking paid.
Right.
So that might mean doing shitty work or making a name for yourself. But with that, once you're a business, and this is something I've learned since moving, businesses by their nature have to be social, and you make a lot of relationships being a business because you have to court different people, be it like, let's say you're a construction company, you have to court permitting, or you have to deal with,
you got to get inspectors and your common so people you're going to call.
So you might have to deal with like even like the Department of the Environment to make sure that all of your stuff is up to environmental code and that it won't like leak fuel or something into the groundwater. So you have to deal with all these people, and because of that, you have to make these relationships. And so you're, at the top level, you're meeting all these people, you're dealing with this, and this isn't even including your customers. If you give them a good show and you do your job well, like they're going to either hire you again, or they're going to recommend you to other people, or they're going to think of you the moment they need someone that, plugs that hole that they need.
Well, word of mouth too is that's
referrals.
Like, I did a short thing in construction, and my buddy that owned the company, he did pretty well for himself, and that's what he said. He said that the number one advertisement is word of mouth.
Of course.
He's a small no-name company that, nobody's going to know about outside of our area, but then all these people that needed whatever done, like he did, he would do like some sort of house, like rough carpentry stuff, floors. He did side things where he would do fine carpentry with cabinets and stuff. He had a little corner on there's like a local yacht club, and he would refinish these people's yachts. He'd take a couple months to do it, and over like 3-4 months, he'd make like 120 grand just like redoing these dudes' yachts. But anyway, the whole thing that he would always say is like word of mouth, right? You finish one guy's yacht, it's really good. Somebody else, you get that done, and next thing you know, you got more people lined up that need this job done, or flooring jobs or whatever. So he didn't really like advertise on billboards or signs or anything like that, because he knew that doing a good job is going to get him more business.
Yeah. I mean, it solves two problems, like you were saying. One, it solves the problem of not being able to get your guys around to train. Now it's like, oh, I'm your boss. Now you can show up to training. Now we can organize and actually plan for training. We can get funding for the training, if we're taking contracts, and you don't have to, supply your own bullets or whatever. And then it also solves the problem of being networking and establishing, relationships with the people in your city, so that when something does really bad happen, you're able to, call in favors, to a degree.
I think that the biggest thing with that is like getting to that point initially. Like once you've established that you have, business and your private military company, you're able to secure enough contracts to where the guys in your group are saying, okay, it's beneficial for me to leave my current job, whatever that is. I mean, there's always a wide variety of guys, and some guys that make very good money, and some guys that, are always open to new work, because it's like they're always going to make around the same wage, taking anything that you can.
Well, security work. Okay, so I can tell you this. So security work in Miami was very interesting. While I never did this, a lot of the companies were just looking for dudes that were licensed, and then they would say it would be 100% word of mouth type shit. Like my homie offered me a few contracts, and I'm like, dude, no fucking way, man. But it would be, okay, show up in a suit, show up with a handgun in a concealed holster, have your licenses, and that was it. Like that was all the word you got, and you just got told to be somewhere. And then lo and behold, you're the private security detail for like some fucking up and coming rapper or some mid-level dignitary or some shit. It would be some random stuff. Like my buddy would tell, because my buddy used to take all those contracts. He'd be like, dude, I would, it would just be random jobs. Someone was just looking for security, and they do it through not even back channels, but through word of mouth channels. So, you get paid in cash, and you just show up and look imposing and carry a fucking gun in your waistband, and that's it. You're there for 12 hours or 8 hours or however long, and then you go home, and that's it. You get paid. And so you could theoretically like do
you
that.
could have low skill to get some initial contracts, and then use that money and time that you have now to start.
Well, what I'm saying is guys might not even have to quit their main job, but just if
Side
you
hustle.
get, it's a side hustle. You get them their licensure, and then they're still working for you. And, you got to be above the board and figure out the accounting and stuff like that, and figuring out how you're going to do it on like your tax forms. But at the end of the day, like, I mean, you could even do that side work and just, dude, there was a lot of work where my buddy told me, he's like, I just want you to go and buy a black t-shirt that says security on it in white letters and just own it. And then if you ever need some side money, you could always do that. And I'm like, fuck, man, it really is that easy. And I don't know how it is anywhere else, but that's how
I can speak on this because I actually am working for a security company out here in Utah. It's one of the older security companies in the state. It's been around for like 29 years. I'm not going to name drop them, but a lot of it is because it's Utah, right? There's not a whole lot of shit going on here for the most part.
Yeah.
So a lot of it's stationary kind of stuff. I am on the executive protection team, so occasionally we do have calls where it's like, hey, like it's a 4-hour minimum contract, that we charge the client, even though you might only be working for 30 minutes. But it's like, oh, we got to go pick someone up at the airport. You got to go take the blacked out Tahoe and drive them to their hotel type shit. We worked the Sundance Film Festival, for example, here. They're just really kind of odd, off the ball, kind of jobs, but they have been around for a while, and we do have a good reputation for the most part. So we do get those calls where it's like, oh, we need a guy because there's a termination. A bunch of people are getting fired at this company. They just want someone there in case someone decides to get crazy and start shooting out the place, right?
Yeah.
So we got a couple different tiers. Like we got the regular security, unarmed, whatever, and then you got the armed, and then you got the EP teams, which we're kind of like on a call status. We got a channel, and the guy will just put out, it's like, hey, we need officer, we need a guy for this, and it's like kind of first come first serve kind of thing. But that's something I want to talk to my boss and like the owner of the company is like, how do they structure it? How do they market themselves aside from like the website that they've got and shit? So something I want to try and figure out more so than just being the grunt for hire kind of thing.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's kind of
There's a distant family member that used to work a lot of security actually in South Florida. They lived there only for a bit, but they live here now, or they used to live here. And long story short, the guy was telling me, he's like, most contracts that I would get would be because someone had a good experience and they told their friend, which is crazy. Like, it really is just a word of mouth business. And, eventually, you're only so many degrees of separation away from people that you might want to be rubbing elbows with because they're rich or powerful or they align with your views, whatever your target audience is, odds are that at some point word might get around to them, especially if they're the type of people who need security. So it's interesting. It's very curious. The security job I worked was a static site, and then it was armed for a nuclear power plant. So it was a little different. Like, it wasn't the type of job that would offer you moonlighting contracts. It was more like, oh, hey, we have overtime for the plant because we're guarding the plant 24/7. That's the whole thing. But it was cool enough gig. But it's the same license for there as it is to be a fucking mall cop, or as it is to be an executive protection dude for a rapper. It's all the same in Florida. So that's something to think about to anyone listening. If you're like, hey, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to go through and I'm going to start my own security company. Like, do some research and you'll find out that at least in Florida, man, it's the same license. And
all you need is a license and a belt fed. I said all you need is a license and a belt fed.
Yeah.
Can you imagine though, like that would be like a good side publicity thing if you did have like a belt fed, even if it was like a semi-auto saw or whatever. Just be like, yeah, like these Miami rappers or these rappers landing Miami. If you take a picture,
we got the real backup.
Is just some fucking dude in a t-shirt that says security with a belt fed. Like
that would be gangster as fuck.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's weird how so public perception is different too. So if you were open carrying in a state that, even if it's a state that's cool with open carry, like people are still going to be weird if they're not used to it. But the moment you have security clothing on and you're clearly working for a security company, your ass could have a fucking Glock 34 on your hip and fucking 20 mags that no one bats an eye because you're supposed to be armed, So that's another boon with the whole security company thing.
Yeah, it's like trespassing with a high visibility vest on. You're supposed to be.
Yeah, I'm a surveyor, sir.
Didn't you see my clipboard? Why are you bothering me? I have work to do.
I have a hard hat, I have a clipboard with nothing on it, and I have a safety vest. I am invincible.
Well, yeah.
Cloak of invisibility.
The clipboard just has a piece of printer paper on it that you've been drawing dicks on all day.
Oh,
sophisticated.
Hey, so do guys at Ranger Bat, do they draw dicks on shit just like everyone else?
Oh yeah, brother. Oh dude, we would fucking, did you ever shoot like the linked 40 mic?
Yeah, the Mark 19. Yeah,
that foam packing that it come in, like the little foam sheets.
Yeah, just little separators.
Yeah, we would take those and we'd cut dicks out of them with like our short trauma shears, and then we'd stuff them in people's kits. Like when they had their kits off, we're just staged, we're just having chow or something, and like you'd put it into that dude's empty pouches, so that they go to put something in their pouch, and there's just this fucking dick that comes out of them. It was a funny little prank.
Have you ever heard of the? I think it's like a 4chan green text or something, but it's the story about the dick cards.
I probably have heard it. Where
there was, I can't remember if it was like Marines or Rangers. I mean, they're basically the same thing, so I always get it mixed up.
Oh my god!
Or like like a special operations team or something. Anyway, there's these guys that were in Afghanistan. They were in kind of like a remote area, in like a small ass little fob that they build out of plywood and stuff. And they had this game that they would play where, like they had a couple of decks of these cards that were just like dudes with their
yeah, I've heard this one. And they put like Velcro on them.
Yeah, they would like put them in random places. Like you'd open up like a drawer in your desk and there'd be one there or whatever. And they were saying that he was saying that there was like less and less that people were finding. Like it almost seemed like somebody was hoarding them all. And then at one point they were out on patrol or whatever, and they start getting contact, and one guy gets hit, and it's nothing serious, but like he still got shot, and so the doc comes over and he takes out his med bag and he opens it up and he just starts laughing, and the guy that's like sitting there bleeding is like, what? He's pissed. He's like, what are you laughing at? And the dude just reaches in, pulls out a handful of these dick cards, throws them at him, and so somebody was hoarding like all of these things, and they just stuffed the medic bag with it.
So fucking funny.
And
It's the right spot.
he said that they ended up like, ended up repelling the force or whatever, and then like patched the guy up and he was all good, and they left and got him proper medical care. But he was saying, like, I can't help but think that after the firefight was over and we had left, he was saying that like you just can't help but think that the Taliban walked into where the Americans were at and found like a little pool of blood and like all these dick cards, and was like, what are these Americans doing?
Yeah, they probably thought that's on point for Americans. There was another time,
Which is ironic too, because they have like some weird things that they do with their junior.
They had gay
Man
sex.
Love Thursday, baby.
Exactly.
Man Love Thursday.
I haven't even been around Afghanis and I know about Man Love Thursday.
Yep.
Like that's how widespread
That shit's
it is.
real. Like if you're a fucking babyface private dude, you get that look.
Oh,
you get
those
that
memes
male
are real.
gaze. The
Oh,
memes
those
are
memes
fucking
are
real,
real.
dude. Like,
Jesus Christ.
like I mean, obviously nothing happens because it's like we'd fucking kill them if they fucking raped one of my privates, But that's my fucking job, right? Anyway, that's a joke. That's a joke. But like, dude, like we had this. This was in Iraq too, so it's not just limited to Afghanistan. But the group we were training with, it was like me and another. He was a gun team leader, and he was very babyface. He looked like this sweet little innocent boy, and he would get fucking hit on by these Iraqis, bro. Like, it's a fucking real thing over there.
Oh, man. All right. I got to ask a weird question.
Yeah.
Did the spoon thing actually happen?
Remind me of what the spoon thing is.
Is it true that someone in back killed someone with an MRE spoon?
I've heard the stories. I don't think that it's true personally.
I heard that he like stabbed a guy in the neck with an MRE spoon because he was.
I mean, we don't eat MRE. The thing about that is like you're not going to be carrying an MRE spoon around. Like that's weird.
Oh no, that's like a common thing in the infantry. I'm not even joking. Like, dude.
I mean, for infantry, yeah. I mean, that makes sense. You guys are out like patrolling and shit.
Yeah, but we had we would shove dudes would have an MRE spoon in the molly of their fucking IoT.
Yeah,
there was no reason for it. Oh,
really?
Dude, what?
No, you'd get fucking. I've never seen that in my entire time in BAT, and you would get fucking made. You would get fucking hazed for it. You'd get made fun of if someone did that.
Oh, of course you would. No,
those things are indestructible though. Like you can. I can't remember what it is, but there's something with like machine guns or mortars or something like that. Not mortars, but machine guns or something where people like have some sort of use for an MRE spoon, so they'll keep.
I don't know about that. I've never heard that shit.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, maybe I don't. I can't remember. There's some sort of
we'd use them as in Ranger school. We would use them as aiming stakes. So like when you're setting up a sport fire, you'd set up. You put a little bit of loom tape on the back of it, and you'd stake them into the ground. It's kind of like improvised aiming stakes, left and right limits and shit.
Oh yeah.
So that makes sense, but
you can use them for insulators for like field expedient antennas and stuff. You're not going to do.
The major thing I've seen is guys. They'll break off the spoon part and they'll tape them over the like boom mic on like their Peltors or on their CBC helmet with the mic. Just so I don't know why they would do it. I think it's like
like a windshield.
Yeah. But you would see it every once in a while. It'd just be like an MRE spoon, like just duct taped to someone's mic. Yeah, it's weird, but people do it. I've seen it. But yeah, okay, cool. So they have that.
I don't think it's. I know it's kind of sad, but
because it sounds like crazy. Like
yeah. I don't know.
Okay.
The story I had heard about it was that they were like going through rooms in like early Iraq, probably like 2005 or 6, and he like goes.
I heard it was much later than that. Jesus Christ.
Well, my story's right that I heard. Yours is wrong.
I heard it was like recent-ish, like post like 2013.
Oh, dude, I don't. Maybe it was another potential instance, but yeah, from what I heard, like, because a lot of the kit back in the day too was like wearing your chest rigs and your flicks over your body armor and stuff. So this guy, like, he's going through a room and he was the first one in or whatever. And there was somebody behind the door. I can't remember. They basically like grabbed his rifle and they started to kind of tussle a little bit. And nobody could like shoot this guy because he's rolling around with, their teammate. And he was trying to reach for a knife or anything to like stab this guy. And he couldn't. The only thing that he had within reach was like an MRE spoon in the molly of his flick. So he grabbed it and stabbed this dude in the neck with it. That's the story I had heard about the MRE spoon kill.
I mean, that's a little bit more believable than a ranger doing it, to be honest.
I think it was a ranger though, from what I
really.
Yeah,
well,
it was
okay,
like rangers.
Was he a ranger or was he a ranger?
Is that like every
There's
Ranger
distinction.
Rifleman versus right?
Well, there's
Is he a Ranger school? Is he a Ranger school grad, or
yeah.
is he a Ranger bad dude?
No, I don't know. I don't know what this
Because it
guy
could
is.
totally be that he was Ranger school grad.
I don't know
and
what
then
this
just went
guy's
back to the
DOD
line or
ID
whatever.
number is and all that stuff.
Yeah, well, find his fucking cat card in his first line and fucking bring him over here with the water source. Like, right
Heard you calling yourself a ranger, boy.
No, dude, I've heard so much wacky shit from fucking Rangers, dude.
Dude, fucking lay him out, dude. I'm down to
Okay, slightly
Hear more.
tangential.
Got
Yeah.
the debunker right here.
How fucking close has someone gotten to some of these fucking dudes on target? Like I'm talking like on
Like,
top of the motherfucker.
kills.
Yeah,
I mean,
or I don't know, man. Kissing him good
kissing
night. I don't know.
kissing the homie goodnight.
Only on Thursday.
No, he's not the homie.
He's not the homie. Do not kiss him goodnight.
He's a housey, not a homie.
I don't know, man. That sounds hard. Like,
We had a guy. He was our weapons squad leader when I showed up. His name was. Unfortunately he was killed in training. Staff Sergeant Carpenter. But he would carry a fucking katana around, and there's a there was a picture of him out there with a fucking law and a katana strapped across his back. He's a fucking gangster. There's dudes that would carry they would carry tomahawks, knives. I haven't heard of anyone I know personally ever getting that close, but I know that it's happened.
I mean, okay.
You have to kind of assume that it has. You're going into these tiny little mud huts. I mean, the Ranger mission primarily is raids. So you're in Afghanistan. You're fucking setting your inner cordon, and then if they don't respond to the call out, which is what we kind of started having to do towards the end of the war due to ROE changes and shit. If the fucking dudes didn't want to come out, it's like, all right, we're going to send the Afghan partner force in first. And if they fucking decide to get cold feet, like, let's go, let's get it on. And we did get to do specific CQB kind of martial arts training, if you will. They called it the Vanguard course. It was like a 2-week course where you literally just go in, you're wearing full kit with a fucking fake knife, rifle, pistol, UTM, training rounds, and you just get to beat the fuck out of each other for like 2 weeks. So like learning how to fight with your rifle,
awesome.
muzzle thump dudes, like entangled gunfights. How practical was it? I mean, debatable, up to debate, but it was definitely a fucking eye opener.
I mean, there's probably one guy who's had to deal with that shit, and it's probably like that. That's probably the one time that it makes it all worth it, right? Everyone learns it, and I mean, okay, cool. What else would you be doing these 2 weeks? And then you're at least prepared for that.
Yeah. But it's definitely happened. I don't know anyone personally or have any personal war stories from that. Or know anyone that has told one of those. So
I just gotta ask.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you get close, dude. You get close.
Well, that's the one thing I've noticed about Ranger bad dudes is they're probably them and like a lot of like older Marines super casual about the shit that goes on target. Like there's no, I don't know. Every time I've spoken to someone about it, it's always like, "Oh yeah, dude, we fucking killed that dude." Like it was like yeah, I got right up into his shit. I blew his brains.
Yeah,
dude, we're at Waffle House right now.
Meanwhile, you're just sitting in a Kroger listening to the story from some.
Sir, this is a Wendy's. There are stories of dudes in this, like after you kill a guy, you'd have the fucking private go and stab the body so you can kind of feel what it feels like.
I've heard of that.
Yeah,
You're not the first person to tell me that.
It's not an uncommon thing to hear about. Kind of doesn't happen as much anymore because we weren't killing as many dudes towards the end of the war. But I've heard of that happening, or just letting the dog fucking chew
Eat
on
him.
the guy. Yeah, basically.
I think I remember seeing a like a YouTube video from probably like 2007, 2008 of I
A
can't
dog eating someone.
no that was all in live leak. I can't remember once again. Like,
R.I.P.
at this point, I'm not trying to like make a meme out of it. Like I can't remember it was either Rangers or Marines though, but they were going through and clearing buildings, and they had like rescue Randys as like the targets kind of thing,
Mhm.
and they were going through and it was like all dry, and then they were calling out like swift kick to the nuts, and they were kicking these bodies of like the targets in the nuts because that's how you check to make sure they're really dead is you kick
Yeah.
these bodies as hard as you can right in the
Mhm.
nuts, and if they react to it and they're still alive.
I remember they used to teach us that shit, and like it was funny because they would do the it would be the mix up of classes because it was just like training, and it's been going on for so long that like you misremember things. But one of them was like, yeah, to make sure he's dead, you flick his eyelid, and if he doesn't move, then he's dead. And it's like, dude, I'm not fucking doing that.
Yeah, that
I'm
sounds
not getting that
gross.
close.
I'm not fucking.
I'm not touching this dude with my fingers. I gotta go eat with those things later.
What do you want me to do? Kiss this guy in the lips?
If he sticks his tongue in your mouth, he's still alive.
You gotta like, you just
If he
gotta
moans a little.
You just gotta pull out your Beretta or your fucking Sig or whatever it is these days, and just put it right under his chin. And you know, if you feel some tug, you just pull the trigger.
No, there was
Nuts, dude.
I used to work at a Lowe's, and so I'd like meet some interesting people, and sometimes
Did you kiss him in the fucking lips?
yeah, that's what made me think about this. No, like you'd see these guys come in with like the giant hats, and it's like Korea War veteran or Vietnam War veteran, and so I'd get to talking to them and you know figure out what their story was and whatnot, and then I would usually tell them like, oh yeah, I'm in right now, whatever. And they would just start as soon as they'd figure out that I was a Marine, especially if they were a Marine, they would just start giving me like onslaughts of stories. And I'm getting paid by the hour. Like I'm just gonna sit there and listen to this shit. And there was this guy that would come in every now and then, and he was a Korea vet. He was an Army guy, and he would always have like this little tiny like little like teacup poodle or something like that in this cart. And he'd walk around, and I don't even know what the hell he'd shop for at Lowe's, but he was telling me a story one time about how, he was like an infantryman and did all that stuff, and how he had like a couple months left or a couple weeks left in country before he was able to leave. So they had him as like the driver for some colonel or lieutenant colonel, and they would just like have him drive this dude through like the Korea countryside and drop him off for like meetings and shit. And he would tell me that, or he was saying that one time, like, he drove this guy across Korea, and he was getting in like gunfights where like the guy he was driving around would basically take over driving, and he'd hop on the M2 and just start shooting people. And then he would jump back in the driver's seat and continue driving. And he said like there was a point where they had to drive like kind of far, and he was getting in gunfights and all this stuff. And while the meeting was going on, he was standing outside leaning up against his Jeep, just like smoking a cigarette. And some dude comes up to him and just starts chewing him out because of how dirty his Jeep is. But anyway, he was like telling me all these stories, and he starts going on. He's like, man, we killed so many fucking Chinese. He's like, they were like crawling over top of each other to be able to shoot at us. Like they were forming like walls of dead bodies that they couldn't get across and stuff. And he's going on this whole thing, and then he just stops and looks at this little shitty ankle biter dog and is like, I love this dog. It literally went from like we killed a ton of Chinese to how much he loves his little dog. But yeah, it was always like funny stories from like the really old guys, like you said.
You hit him with the nervous chuckle and be like, yeah, so light bulbs are in aisle 5.
No, dude, I was laughing. I was like, this is hilarious. Every time that guy would come in, I'd make it a point. Like if I saw him walking around, you'd see his big hat sticking up over the top of the aisle. You'd like go beeline toward him, and I'd always try to help him. And I'd always like wonder if he would remember me, and he usually would, but I don't know. He's old as fuck. But yeah, that was
hell yeah.
Hearing the Korea War vet stories is always funnier.
Shit's
like,
wild.
Yeah, I've only been to like a VFW hall one time because during COVID we our unit didn't have like a birthday ball, so me and a couple other guys from our section had like our own little birthday ball, and the one guy, he's a cop in this town, and so he was able to like secure the VFW hall for us, and so I'm not a member of the VFW, so I went there and I got there a little early, and while I was waiting, I was like, hey, I'll get a drink, and I also didn't realize how cheap like liquor was there, so I was sitting there just having a drink, and like all these old VFW vets wanted to just like talk to me and tell me stories and stuff. And
Well, the VFW is like a dying thing, right? Like, dude, people don't really go to the VFWs.
well, yeah, because it's weird.
Well, yeah, it's only weird because no one goes to them.
No, it's weird because you go there and there's like some old guy that just starts telling you all these crazy stories about stuff you don't care about. They're not like cool, like, oh yeah, we stuck Bangalores in some pillbox and blew some dude's heads off. It was like, oh
Super
yeah, when
lame.
I was in,
Peacetime stories.
You could get cigarettes from a vending machine. Like, dude, I
Wow.
don't care.
Sick, brother. You can still do that in Germany.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. You could fucking get them in vending
Dude.
machines.
I got a fucking wild Germany story.
Okay, where were
That's
you in
one
Germany?
So this was, this was like we just stopped in Germany on the way to like Afghanistan or Iraq.
Oh,
or whatever.
okay.
And this was post we had a no notice deployment at the beginning of 2020. And we were on the way over there. We stopped in Spain. On the way back, we stopped in Germany, Ramstein. So there's like I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right, but Kaiserslautern.
Oh yeah,
They call it K-Town. Yeah. And it was like the middle of our training cycle, and we'd just been, we were planning on deploying again later that year, so it was going to be a twofer. And everyone was pissed. We had platoon live fire coming up, and NCOs were allowed to go out and fucking drink. And
that's always the worst.
Yeah, so it was like team leader and up, like PL, platoon sergeant, squad leaders, and we end up going out, and it's like the middle of the week. It's like a Wednesday or a Thursday, and we go to a normal bar, have normal drinks, and then someone, my fucking buddy specifically, was like, "Yo, let's go to a strip club."
Yeah,
as you do, and everyone's like, "All right, let's do it." And we find a strip club. It's fucking tiny, and it's like the B team of strippers, right? So we're freaking hanging out there, and one of them calls my buddy Jimmy onto the stage and like lays him down. We're like, "What the fuck is this?" She starts like dancing on him. She starts taking off his clothes, and we're like, "Oh, it's one of those fucking kind of clubs." And she like goes for his belt and like takes his belt and starts fucking beating him across the stomach with this fucking belt. Anyways, it's a whole thing over there apparently. So I go up, I get beat with the belt. And we go to another strip club. Same thing happens there. And we go back to the first one. We steal the belt and some fucking wings, like those fucking fairy wings. And to make this relevant to the cigarettes and shit, like we come back to the little shitty barracks, like the holdover barracks that you stay in waiting for your next flight. And we start just fucking chain smoking in the fucking showers, like inside. Like, God, both of us, our bellies are like almost bloody, and we're just like in the communal shower, just letting the cold water like run against our bellies, just ripping the cig. And some big army fuck comes in. It's like 3 or 4 in the morning at this point, and he comes in and he's like, "Who the fuck is smoking cigarettes?" And like he makes it to where we were, and he just takes one look at us and like doesn't say shit. Like he just looks at the state that we're in and who we are and who we're with, and he's like, "All right, I'm not gonna say anything to these guys." But yeah, that's one of the funnier stories I've got from Europe. But yeah, we bought those cigarettes at a little vending machine in one of the bars, and it was dope. It was awesome. They have like the gross, pictures of lungs and shit. This is what's gonna happen if you smoke this. And we're like, that's pretty metal.
Yeah,
Let's get 2 packs.
I was stationed in Germany.
Okay, yeah, so
yeah. So it was a fun time. I definitely never went into any strip clubs, and I was never beat with the belt.
Oh man, you're missing out. So once in a life, once a lifetime thing.
I think that's a Ranger thing.
Probably.
I've never been to
You
it.
guys walked in there with your fucking berets on, and
Oh fuck no! We were wearing our. We don't wear. we don't even take them overseas, dude.
No, I wouldn't. It's funny.
We were wearing just our rough uniform, our flannels and cool pants, and
I was just gonna say
the wristbands and black chucks and Garmin watches with ball caps. You can spot a ranger a mile away if you go to the right places.
No, I've never been to a strip club, but I heard a funny story from somebody that me and Gio know, and he had this story of when he was still active duty. Him and his buddy, I guess that there was like a midget thing going on.
God.
Wow.
His buddy was like, I need to go there because I need to throw a midget. I need to pick up a midget and throw one. And he didn't have like a thing where it needed to be at like a strip club or anything. He just wanted at some point to pick up a midget, any midget, and throw it from my memory. So this was like the perfect opportunity. So he was like, all right, we can go to this, I guess. So his buddy was like, all right, let's pregame first. And he's like, all right, sure, we could start drinking a little bit. Well, apparently this guy's idea of pre-gaming is chugging whiskey.
Hell yeah.
By the time that they get in the Uber to drive into town, he's already like totally toasted. And they get into this club, and immediately his buddy is nowhere to be found. And he's like, this is not gonna be a good night. And so he's like looking all around for his friend, and he hears like a woman scream. And he looks over, and it's his friend holding this midget like above his head, and he just throws this midget and like toward the front door, and he like looks over, and walking into the door was this like brand new boot looking dude with like a high and tight and everything, gets smacked with this midget, and then they both run out the back, and then they like run down and get an Uber and get back. Turned out that this guy was like fresh out of like the basic school for officers, like infantry officers course and stuff, and he was like a brand new platoon sergeant with one of the infantry units there. So it was like, I don't know, I just dude in a high and tight walks into this place, and you immediately get a midget thrown at you.
That's hilarious. Oh
yeah, the funniest part, because I think he like texted this story in like a group chat, but yeah, as soon as he said like, yeah, my buddy's idea of pre-gaming was chugging whiskey, I lost it when he was telling the story.
No,
you already know that
you already know it's gonna be a good one when you're hanging out with one of those guys.
Good.
That's like the entire army.
Yep.
The entirety of the United States Army is, well, all the cool parts are like that. Yeah. They need to like when you're out processing, they need to like give you like a true return to regular life, because it's like, dude, you can't just kill strippers. we let it go because we sent all the really bad ones to fucking Fayetteville or Columbus or wherever the fuck.
Columbus. I hate that place.
Like Ohio?
No, Columbus, Georgia, baby. Worse.
Oh,
somehow. That's where
I
Benning
didn't
is.
think there was anything going on in Columbus.
It's
Columbus, Georgia is home of Fort Benning. Well, whatever it's called now.
Fort Moore now, but it'll always be Benning in my heart.
I have a T-shirt. I have a picture on my Instagram because I wore it to the last thing I did at Darcy, and it's just it's like University of Fort Benning. It's the most moto
School for Wayward Boys. Is it?
No,
it
isn't the School for Wayward Boys. No, it's just it's University of Fort Benning. It's got big cross rifles on it. It's such it's such a terrible shirt. But I bought it on eBay when they were changing the name, because I'm like, oh, there's no fucking way. I'm like, I'm not letting them take away the fact.
It's like Walmart tier with the eagles and the flags and stuff.
No, it's not that bad, but it's a moto shirt. Like it's something that like. It's something that your platoon sergeant would wear tucked into his fucking jeans, like some shit.
Hell.
But I bought that shirt because I'm like, oh, dude, there's no way, because I know at some point
you can't memory hold this, bitch.
Yeah, there's going to be a point where there's going to be no more Fort Benning shirts, and they're all going to say Fort Moore, and it's just not going to be the same.
There's only related to t-shirts, but there's in 29 Palms, like on Main Side, like the whole base kind of is like on a slope, and at the bottom of the hill, or at least the main side is at the bottom of the hill, like on main side, there's Lake Bandini, and that's where like all the sewage runoff and stuff goes into. So it's literally like Poop Lake. And
Hell yeah.
in the mornings
Delicious.
when we would be, because that's like where I went for my like MOS training at my radio school. It's all in 29 Palms.
Poop
So
Lake.
in the mornings we'd be standing there in the morning, and the wind would be coming on right. We'd be like in formation waiting for our instructors to show up, and you would just smell it, and it smelled horrible. And you can see it like way out in the distance from the like behind the barracks. And I think that like right when we got there, somebody had asked like, "Oh, can we go swimming in that lake down there?" And he goes,
Oh my
"Our
God.
instructor is like, go for it. He's like, I'm not going to stop you." And anyway, so one of my buddies, he works at a place where they do T-shirts and stuff, and he wants to make a shirt that says Lake Bandini Swim Team, and it's like
Fuck yeah.
it'd be like kind of 80s looking, and like this brown shirt with like yellow letters, like just
That
really
goes
gross
hard.
looking.
No, that's
That would be
great.
sick.
Okay, I have a poop story. NTC, there was a week where when we were there, of course, when the fucking Porta-John people went on strike.
Oh my god.
Dude,
No.
so have you,
No.
I don't know if you guys have ever had to go to NTC.
Thank God I didn't.
Okay, well,
Ranger
at the,
privilege.
yeah, so at the Ruba, they have like a long.
NTC is just like the 29 Palms for the Army, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's the big Op 4 base. There's 3 of them, but NTC is the big one that everyone goes to. It's in the desert. And so at the Ruba, which is it's like rotational unit birthing area or whatever the fuck it stands for, Pogue City. Anyways, the bathrooms are like regular bathrooms, but they only have like 3 toilets. And so they always, whenever there's a unit there, they bring in like 40 Porta-Johns that they put all over.
Oh my god.
And they have a row of them in front of the bathroom. So like, you would hope people go take a leak in the Porta-Johns unless all the bathrooms inside are full. Then you go take a shit in the Porta-John. Dude, it stacks so high that it was like above the fucking toilet seat.
Yeah.
And I
I've
had
had that
to
before.
shit. I had to go so badly. And I'm just frantically opening doors. And I just look down and I'm hit by the desert bake smell of shit. And just all the way to the top. I'm like, oh, dude, no. I ended up having to just squat over it and just do my thing. But I felt so dirty, dude. Like, I didn't want to be in there. I wanted to shit with the door open. And had I not been in the Army at the time, I would have. I would have just fucking opened that door. I would have been like, whatever, man, sexual assault. I don't give a shit, dude. I am not putting my ass anywhere near that, and I'm not locking myself in this fucking box of death. But, dude, it was so disgusting. It was like I've never seen that happen before.
I saw that shit at Benning during basic, like one of the fucking little IMT ranges we went to. Fucking, there was a couple Porta-Johns that were just completely maxed out. And I was like, what the fuck? Did they just forget about these out here?
Yeah, no, they
It's
did.
horrid. It's the worst.
The
I didn't know you
is,
could
like,
max
when
them
they
out.
I've had that before where like we've gone to some kind of like training areas where they're not frequented by the porta poop people cleaners.
The poop suckers.
Yeah, the poop suckers. And yeah, like you'll see a Porta-John where it's like there's a mound of human waste that's above the seat, and you know that the very bottom layer is from like 2008.
You can read the history of the war in the layers of this shit.
Exactly. And like
If you
it
look
was
here, you
back,
can
like-
see when they switch from C rations to MREs.
yeah, there's like a can of sea ration jelly in the bottom and crackers. No, dude, there was back in like I think it was like April or May or something last year. I think it was April actually. We went to Fort Knox, and we were down there, and I was out like on a mortar range the whole time on the hill with the observers and all that, and then go back and doing some other stuff. So anyway, like the morning that we were leaving, the buses were supposed to come pick us up like super early. So we wake up, and I remember too, like I just randomly woke up. Oh yeah, it was because it started raining. It started like pissing rain, and I didn't end up bringing like a bivvy or a tent or anything because I had packed a tent because I was like, I'm going to be on the hill the whole time. Like I'm going to sleep comfortably. I packed a tent, and I guess that I didn't know that we had gotten a new first sergeant, and he decreed like we can't use tents anymore, which has always been like a back and forth thing in my unit, at least, is like using tents or not using tents. And I didn't know this because I wasn't there. I was off doing other ranges and stuff. So we get there, and I'm like, yeah, I got my tent. And one of the judges is like, oh yeah, we're not supposed to bring tents anymore. And I was like, well, this is dumb. And without thinking, I just put it back in my car, not thinking like I'm going to be on the hill where I'm in charge and nobody's going to tell me not to use a tent. So I didn't have anything. I didn't bring a bivvy originally because I had my tent. So the first night I was on the hill just fighting spiders all night. Dude, I felt like I was in Skyrim. Like all night I kept waking up and brushing these big ass spiders off of me. And I do not like spiders, and I was not having a good time. And then the next day, like we go do all this stuff. So anyway, I'm going to sleep, and it just starts pissing rain. And I'm like, I kind of had my tarp like where I opened it up, I put my poncho liner in it, and then I folded it over me like a little burrito. But I'm too tall for my tarp, so it was like I was just getting soaked. I was like, this is dumb. We got to wake up in like 30 minutes anyway. I'm just gonna pack up all my shit, and I'm gonna go sit underneath this little awning and smoke a pipe and hang out. So I do this, and I'm sitting there, and it's like, everybody starts waking up, and it's really nice because at that point I had already like made coffee and everything, and I'm awake, and everybody else is getting up in the rain, and it sucks.
It's nice being the first dude awake.
Oh, honestly,
for some reason, it's always like, oh, dude, look at you all stupid waking up. That was me 30 minutes ago.
Exactly. Yeah, you're an idiot. I'm no longer an idiot. But yeah, dude, like they're like, all right, I was like, oh, where's the hygiene area? And they're like, oh, it's right behind the porta johns. I'm like, all right, cool. So I go over there, and I'm going to brush my teeth, and the winds just kept blowing the smell of like 8 porta shitters right in my nose while I'm trying to brush my teeth. Dude,
God.
I was about to puke everywhere.
Nice.
And but yeah, that was the time that I ended up getting home. And so we get the buses back, and then right when we get off the buses, then we got to do like a full accountability. And I think that there was like an instance where somebody had lost something. We were turning in weapons by like small sections. So I'm just standing in this like warehouse with my ruck on, just like hanging out, waiting for my turn to turn in my weapon and stuff. And so I do that, go drop my pack off in my car. Like, we're doing some other stuff. We get released. I drive home, all that, take my pack inside, set it in my office, shower, go out to eat. Well, that night I was doing some stuff in here in my office, and then I'm like sitting on my phone, and I'm about to go and get up and leave and go to bed. And I just see something out of the corner of my eye in my pack, and I look, and there was a little tiny scorpion on there, and I was like, what the fuck?
No.
And I didn't know what to do because...
Oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah, I'm not done yet. I didn't know what to do because I'm sitting there wearing like sweats, socks, and a t-shirt. Like I don't have anything next to me, and this scorpion's on like the soft part of my pack, so I can't just crush it. So I look around, and there was an empty water jug. So I was like, oh, I can trap it in the jug and put the lid on it. So I pushed the mouth of this water jug up to the scorpion. Never heard it drop, nothing. It's a tiny thing. Like I ended up looking it up, and there's like one type of scorpion that's in Kentucky, and if you get stung by it, like it's gonna hurt for like 15 minutes, but you'll be fine. So I tried to trap it, it doesn't work, and then I lost it, and I didn't know where it went.
Oh no.
And it's like 11 p.m. at night, and I was like, fuck this. So I take my whole pack, stick it outside, and I was like, I'll deal with it tomorrow. So I get up the next morning, and I'm like, oh shit, all my like toothbrush and everything is in my pack. So I like very carefully open up the lid of my pack and grab it out, because I kept that stuff in the lid. Go brush my teeth, stuff, go to work, come back home, and just see the pack sitting on my back deck when I pull into the driveway. And I'm like, all right, like I gotta get this thing out. So I shake everything out, like super carefully checking everything. At one point I found it like in the lid, and I like threw the pack and was like jump off the deck, and I'm like stomping on it on the concrete, and I never heard a crunch, could never find it again. Don't know where the scorpion went at all. And so
It's
I took
still
the
with
pack.
Inside
you.
of you. It's
I
inside
do.
of you.
Probably that's what that tickling is. I take the pack, I put it in my
It's
garage.
under your skin. It's under your skin. It's under your skin.
And like months later, dude, I'm like, I still have no idea where the scorpion is to this day. But a couple months later, we were getting ready for like our 2-week like close air support exercise and everything, and I was like, oh, I do not want to use my pack. So what I ended up doing was I have a Crossfire DG3, and I traded it for a Tactical Tailor Malice, so I didn't need to use my issued pack because I'm afraid of the scorpion.
Oh my God.
God, dude, it's
But
dead.
now I have a Malice.
It's
Hey.
dead.
It's good outcome.
Well, and that's the thing too, is like it started snowing while I was trying to kill this thing, and so there's a guy that I talk to fairly regularly, and he's an exterminator down in Texas, and I was like, hey, question for you, how likely is this thing going to die in the cold? And he goes, dude, honestly, those things can like burrow up into a little tiny hole and just survive through the most damn like weather ever. I'm like, this is fucked. Like there's probably a scorpion living in my garage somewhere.
Hey, you'd be all
Dude,
right.
I don't remember what the fuck I did, but I was out of the military then, and I went like an overnight camping trip with some buddies in the Everglades, and I get back, and I'm living with my parents at the time, because as one does when they get out of the military, unless they're squared
Did you
away.
just call them your roommates?
No, they were definitely not. That was fucking. Anyways, so I leave my ruck downstairs. I go upstairs. I sleep. Whatever the fuck. I wake up to screaming, and I run downstairs, and my mom is like standing on the bar, like the little like breakfast bar, like screaming and being like yelling and pointing. And I look to see what she's pointing at. A fucking snake crawled out of my ruck. I looked at it and I like snuck past it. I went into the garage, I grabbed the machete, and I fucking just went to town on this thing. Like, and we have tile, so I end up like trying to hit it where the grout is, so I don't crack the tile. And I ended up chipping off a little bit, but there was just blood everywhere. And I ended up just hitting it well enough to where I wasn't afraid of its head, and I just grabbed it by the tail and fucking launched it into the yard.
Dude. That's
Jesus.
that's what I do love about living up in Michigan is like we don't have any crazy snakes. Like there are some venomous snakes, but they're like not that common. I think the one that is like a tiny super rare rattlesnake. Like we generally don't have like crazy spiders. Like in my house we get a decent amount of like grass spiders because I live up to like a big field that's my backyard basically. But like brown recluses are pretty rare here. Like we don't really get like black widows or any other venomous spiders. Don't really have to worry about like anything like that. Natural disasters like not really a thing. We get snow in the winter and that's it. Like it's rare for tornadoes to come through like the farmlands in the center part, but yeah, no, I enjoy living here. And then we get mosquitoes pretty bad, but you know that's
The word doesn't,
doable. Yeah.
except the desert.
Well, yeah, mountains and stuff, but no, the mosquitoes here, like in the Upper Peninsula, because like the biome when you get up there is like the same as like Alaska or Siberia. It's like a boreal forest, so you have like swamps and pine trees and all that stuff, and like the mosquitoes are just insane. So I try not to go up there in the summertime because the bugs are just terrible, but. Yeah, I don't know. Could be worse. I could be living in Florida or something.
Yeah. Fucking Savannah, like where we were stationed, the sand gnats were just brutal.
Yeah.
And then we have all the cool little snakes. And I don't know if I can't remember the name of it. But in Florida phase at Ranger School, there was these little tiny ass snakes that, no bigger than like coiled up, like maybe 4 or 5 inches across. And they would love to just like hang out right behind trees you want to take a knee by. So
Wow.
that was a fucking big threat. We had, all kinds of fucking cottonmouths. There was like several 3 or 4 foot long rattlesnakes we'd come across while walking the roads. The RIs all carry these big old walking sticks specifically to obviously help in the swamps and then to move snakes out of the way of a ranger platoon. But luckily no one ever got bit in any of my classes, but that shit was not fun to think about.
Dude,
yeah, terrible.
The last encounter I had with the rattlesnake, I never even saw the fucking thing. It was the worst thing ever. I was like out somewhere I shouldn't have been, practicing things that I shouldn't say that I'm practicing in places I shouldn't have been. So I'm there in a alleged full.
He's out there finger popping his asshole.
That's right. But dude, I'm out there and I'm fucking walking through this like I climbed out of a swamp because I fell into a mud pit and it went all the way to my waist. And I'm like, oh, dude, what the fuck? So I crawl out of it and I'm like walking on dry land and it's all just like, it's all trees and shit. So I knew it was dry. And so the ground is just covered with dead leaves and I just hear it. And like, there is nothing in the world that sounds like a rattlesnake. And if you've never heard one before, the first time you hear it, you know exactly what it is. And I fucking heard that bitch. And I could not see it. And I have my AR in my hands. And I'm like, if I see this motherfucker, I'm going to shoot it. I don't give a fuck. And I'm just going to turn around and run right the fuck back to where I came from. Never saw it, dude. I stood there. I stood there with my heart fucking pumping because I had no idea. For all I knew, that I was standing on that bitch. And I just just scanning as best as I could, and the fucking rattlesnake looks like the grass, but I heard it, and then I didn't hear. I heard it for a little bit, and then it never made a noise again. So
their camo is so fucking good. Copperheads as well, like fucking insane.
Yeah.
Hold on, I gotta look one up.
I killed my
Coyote
buddy
Brown vindicated again.
My buddy had this range like out behind his house in Georgia in like the swamps. And I was walking out there one time and I was taking my girlfriend at the time out shooting with us. And I like step over this little creek we have to cross. And I turn around and my buddy's like, hey, don't move. And there was a copperhead like right underneath her foot, like right where I had just stepped over. And she backed up and I fucking killed it with my Glock, fucking shot it through the head. Took it home and I cooked it up. It tastes like chicken. In case anyone out there's what copperhead tastes like chicken. Yeah, I mean I blew the head off and I cut a couple inches down from where
the venom sac
where his shit would have been. So it was fine. But
the only story I have similar to that, and then I'm gonna wrap it up. But I went camping one time with a buddy. We get to the spot at kind of at nighttime, and it was this area like they'll clear cut big pieces of the woods, and then they'll like plant these pine trees, and they're all in like rows. So up here you'll go through the woods and you'll find these spots where it's like very like perfectly aligned pine tree rows, and it looks pretty cool actually. Even though it's like completely manufactured, but yeah, it's like a really good spot to set up like a hammock or something though. So I was going to set up my hammock, and he was going to set up his little hammock next to mine, and I'm like looking, and there's this like huge spider on this tree, and we're just staring at it. And he was like, dude, he's like, I don't want to set up, under the spider, because it was on the tree that I was about to tie my strap on. I was like, yeah, I don't really want to either. And he wasn't like a gun friend or anything like that. Like he would shoot, but if I had them, but he didn't own any of his own, and that's like, we weren't friends because of guns or anything. And so I just like looked at it, dude. I just drew on this thing and shot the spider off. Then went and set up my hammock and went to bed.
My buddy shot a fish once when we were off-roading. Not even fucking with you, dude. So
that's awesome.
So how South Florida's set up is it's all canals for like drainage and to move water for irrigation. And so usually those canals have roads right next to them. So we're off-roading after a big rain. So the road was kind of under like an inch of water, and it was a dirt road or whatever. And he's in the passenger seat. I'm sitting in the back. I'm like playing on my phone or like looking around or some shit. And all I hear is fish. And then I just hear a fucking gunshot. And I immediately look, and sure enough, there's like a tilapia like floating upside down. I don't think he hit it, but he fucking stunned that motherfucker. I've never seen that before. I was so shocked. I'm like, holy shit. This dude really just saw fish and shot it. And it was just like some fucking Glock 26 little tiny gunners. I was like, God.
That's the most Florida shit I think I've ever heard.
I've shot tegus before with my AR. That was fun. Taking pictures for Instagram. I was just out there and I saw a black and white tegu. They're invasive, so I don't give a fuck.
A what?
A tegu. It's like a big monitor lizard.
Mhm.
Oh,
People get them as pets, and then they escape and they start eating everything. So
Yeah,
I shot him with
like
my
the
AR.
I was afraid about that scorpion I brought here from Kentucky.
No, dude, I'm telling you, scorpion, whatever. It's nothing. You were fine. You could have eaten that bitch. You would have been fine.
I didn't know that you were the resident scorpion expert.
I'm not.
You have one on your drive jacket, right, on the back.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
He's him.
It's literally me. No, dude. Speaking. Okay, so scorpion encounters. I've only ever seen them at NTC, and I pissed on one. That's as far as I got.
Ooh.
That's as much.
Y'all
as
ever
I-
see a camel spider?
No, fuck that.
Those things are terrifying. But
Yeah, I've seen videos, and then I'm like, wow. So this is what everyone talks about. And then,
There was one when I went to Morocco. We had to find some rocks for something.
To
I
pin
can't
'em.
remember if it was for
Or to eat them.
like securing an antenna or for making a garden, one of the two.
Hmm.
But there was like a really good sized rock that was underneath this really big rock. So I was gonna lift this big rock up. My buddy was gonna grab the other rock out, and I go and I pick this rock up, and on the underside of the rock there was, I don't know if it was a camel spider or just another very, very, very large spider. And it started running up toward me, and I just like yelped and let go of this thing. And we were like right next to one of the Moroccan guards too, and he just like looked at us and had this look of like just utter retardation toward us. Like, he not like his, like he just thought that we were probably retarded because
Yeah.
dude, I've never seen a spider that big before in my life. And then yeah, we had like little encounters with scorpions. I was kind of pissed one time because when I was out in 29 Palms, we were like setting up, and we like after the defense thing that we had going on, I went back to where the like cami netting was and like the company staff were at, because I was the radio operator for the company XO, and I'm like sitting up, like leaned up against this box that we would keep, like this big black plastic box with like wheels on it and stuff that we would keep like all of our comm gear in. And so I was leaned up against that, and I fell asleep, and because it was like 2 a.m, and I wake up and somebody was like, "Oh yeah, scorpion was on you," and I was like, he's like, "Yeah, and it ran across you," and then it went underneath like where my back is, and it like disappeared under the box. And I look, and there was like a little hole that was leading under the box. So I was like, why wouldn't you wake me up and tell me to move, because there's
Jesus.
a scorpion? And like and then when we went to go move up the box, I was like looking for it, and it wasn't anywhere to be found. But
it's in you. It's inside you.
yeah, that's probably what's crawling under my
He's hanging
skin.
You
out.
should have
He's hanging
pissed
out
on
with the
it.
other
Is 2016 scorpion, not 2023 scorpion.
You should have pissed on it.
I really should have. But no, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah,
Zach.
man.
Absolutely. Yeah, this was fun.
It's always like a good time to talk when we hit like 3 hours. And
Yeah, it's like, oh shit.
there's some of them where it's been like a struggle to get past, sometime, but
Yeah, well, I appreciate y'all having me. Like, it was a good time, good chat. I'm down to come back maybe in a little bit, a couple months from now or whatever.
yeah,
Whenever you guys need to fill the schedule, like I'm usually pretty free. So
yeah, you are welcome back anytime. Is there
Yeah, dude.
you want to tell people how to find you? Obviously, we said that
yeah.
your YouTube is Danger Ranger.
Yep, Danger Ranger podcast on YouTube. I do podcasts with my Ranger homies. I'm bringing, a lot of guys that want to go to regiment. Kind of, there's not a whole lot of information out there, so that's kind of why I started it initially. So I got that. I got my lethality series where I kind of just give classes on fucking basic shit. Like basic discipline, basic fucking maneuvers. React to contact, shit like that. And then my personal Instagram is the Allred. And you can find my brand through there as well. That's kind of where I just, post normal dude stuff. So yeah, that's it for me.
Awesome. Last thing is that we ended up picking up another sponsor. So we have 15% off for Segura Gear belts with the code Longhouse. And like people have asked too about like the discount codes, how they work and stuff. So anytime that like a company will ask about like how they want us to handle it, we always make sure that there's no like commission on our end for it. Like there's like recently, like there was one where they were wondering if we want to do like 5% discount, and then like we would get the other 5% of like the sales and stuff. And I was like, can you just do a 10% discount and don't give me anything? Because I'd rather not take anything, right?